Chapter 13:11. After a long time, Dumpling's wings finally moved. It seemed that she was about to wake up. Chu Luiyue was happy in her heart, but she didn't dare to relax at all. Her body seemed to be cut by countless knives, and the severe pain came from all parts of her body. No matter how powerful she was just a warrior at the 8th level now. How could she bear the power of a divine beast? Especially it was the power of the red-tailed phoenix, which was almost the top bloodline. A Cheong was next to her, taking most of the power into its own body. Gradually, tiny cracks began to appear on its incredibly tough skin. Blood flowed out slowly. Wu, seeing this scene, Tao Tao was afraid and worried. His eyes were full of panic. He ran over and touched a Cheong's body. A Cheong didn't move. Looking at the blood on the ground, Tao Tao shed tears again. He simply put his horns over and wanted to help. Chu Liwei noticed the movement and warned in a low voice, "Tao, step back." Now it was not an adult and its strength was not enough in all aspects. It didn't even cross the threshold of a divine beast. How could it bear the power of Dumpling? A Cheong also opened its eyes and kicked Tao Tao away. Tao Tao rolled on the ground for half a circle. It was stained with a lot of blood and mud. It looked very embarrassed. It got up unwillingly and wanted to go again. A Cheong made a low cry in its throat, which was full of majesty. Tao Tao was so scared that he stood still. He didn't dare to move again, but his tears kept falling down. Chu Liuyue's mouth overflowed with blood. Her internal organs seemed to be stirred crazily. She was very uncomfortable. Soon, her red cheeks became pale and all the blood faded away quickly. A feeling of collapse came from the depths of her body, and the scene in front of her began to turn white. Chu Luiyue knew that she was already a spent arrow. It had been 2 or 3 hours since he found that Dumpling was going to break through last night. It was very amazing that Chu Luiyue could hold on until now. If there were other warriors at the 8th level, their bodies might have burst because they couldn't bear it. "You can't go on like this." The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle fell into her ears. "Here I come." Chu Liwei shook his head. "That won't do. There are many demonic beasts here. Once you appear, they will definitely sense you. Moreover, Elder Yu Yu and Elder Huafeng are outside as well." She couldn't take the risk. "But you can't hold on any longer." The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was exceptionally cold and firm. "Do you want to die?" The corners of Chu Liuyue's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an extremely faint smile. "There are other ways." She was silent for a moment. Suddenly she looked at Tao Tao and said word by word, "Tao Tao, if you want to save your mother, go to ask for help immediately." Tao Tao stopped crying. He looked at Chu Liuyue blankly with his big eyes. "Foreign aid." "What foreign aid?" The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice became even colder. "Those 2 humans have nothing to do with the red-tailed red phoenix. Even if they come, they can't help at all." "You're still. Who said I invited them?" Chu Luiyue interrupted the legendary three-eyed eagle. The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned. Who else could it be? It seemed that there were only those 2 people who could come to help in this area. Chu Luiyue didn't answer its question. She just took a deep breath and endured the pain in her body. She said slowly, "Silver Ear Piebald Beast, Moe Nightmare Beast, 9 Thunder Giant Ape." The names of the mythological beasts came out from her mouth one by one. "Ask them to come here immediately." After she finished speaking, the cave was silent for a moment. The legendary three-eyed eagle couldn't believe it and asked, You want to ask these mythological beasts to come here to help?" These were all mythological beasts. They were all arrogant, fierce and violent. It was impossible for them to gather together to help anyone at the same time. Even those 9th-grade evil beasts would not be willing to listen to the orders of a human, let alone them. What was Chu Liwei thinking about? Could it be that he had gone mad? Of course Chu Liwei was not crazy. On the contrary, she was extraordinarily calm. Dumpling is a mythological beast. It's useless for 9th-grade evil beasts to come here. Naturally, I want to ask these mythological beasts to come here. The legendary three-eyed eagle choked. For a moment it didn't know how to refute. In its opinion, Chu Luiyue was just wishful thinking. Chu Luiyue didn't care about its opinion. She just looked at Tao Tao and urged him, "It will be too late if you wait a little longer." Tao Tao was shocked. Then he reacted. He immediately turned around and ran outside. Just when he rushed to the entrance of the cave, Chu Liwei shouted again, "Wait." Tao Tao turned back. Chu Liyue's voice was very light, but it seemed to be very powerful, which shocked people's minds. If they don't want to cooperate, just say that I asked them to come here. If anyone doesn't listen to me, I will slaughter the beast park again in the future. The waiting time seemed to be extremely long and unbearable. Elder Huafeng clasped his hands in front of him tightly. He frowned and kept staring at the mountain peak not far away. His heart seemed to be suspended by something. It was neither up nor down. He was very uncomfortable. Plus, there was a little noise just now. Why is there no sound at all now? I don't know how Chu Yu is now. Although Elder Yu was also very worried, he was much calmer than Elder Huafeng. After all, he saw with his own eyes how Chu Yu killed the golden cloud leopard and the black gold wolf with one sword. Seeing that Elder Huafeng was very worried, he thought for a while and comforted him. Huafeng, it's useless to be so nervous now. I've said that this guy's strength is good now. He won't. His voice suddenly stopped and he looked surprised and doubtful. Elder Huafeng followed his gaze and looked at it. He was also puzzled at once. Is that the cub of the steel spine beast? Elder Yu nodded. It came out. What's inside? No, why did it run down the mountain? When they were talking, the cub of the steel spine beast that came out of the cave ran down the mountain quickly. Speed was extremely fast. Bang, bang. Even the ground where it passed by was shaking. Elder Yu didn't know why, but he suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. It was reasonable to say that this cub of the steel spine beast should have a good relationship with Chu Yu. But now for some reason it suddenly ran out alone. However, Chu Yu and the adult steel spine beast in the cave didn't move at all. This was simply too strange. No, I have to go down and take a look. Elder Huafeng said as he was about to go over. Elder Yu immediately pulled him back. Wait a little longer. What are you waiting for? Elder Huafeng was sweating profusely. Something really happens to that kid, it will be too late if we go over now. Let go of me. You. Elder Huafeng was struggling when he suddenly saw Elder Yu's expression change drastically. His heart skipped a beat and he hurriedly turned around to look. When he saw it, he couldn't help but gasp. Why did a divine beast come over at this time? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:12. Mo Tiangi. It was rumored that this kind of magical beast was fierce and extremely aggressive. But was it true? Elder Huafeng widened his eyes and stared at the rapidly approaching Emotunke as he asked anxiously. Elder Yu pursed his lips and said calmly, Don't worry. Although this Emotunke is a divine beast with our strength, it's not a problem to deal with it. His voice stopped abruptly. Because after that Emotunke there were actually a few more that flew over in succession. They were extremely fast and had already flown past in the blink of an eye. They were heading towards the mountain where Chu Yu was. At a rough glance there were as many as 5 or 6 of them. Elder Huafeng tugged at Elder Yu's sleeve. Do you still mean what you said just now? They are so small. The 2 of us should be able to deal with 5 or 6 of them, right? Even he felt a little guilty when he said this. Emotiang's body was very small, but it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, it was the kind that was notorious for being fierce. To be able to win such an evaluation from so many magical beasts, one could see how strong its combat strength was. Elder Yu was also dumbfounded. In the entire beast park there were only about 10 Emotionke in total. Half of them had come all of a sudden. Even on the night when Chu Yu was preparing to break through, there weren't so many of them. He frowned and his expression was solemn. Don't worry, it should be. Look. Before he could finish speaking, Elder Huafeng exclaimed again and pointed to a certain place below. That's a silver ear spotted beast. Elder Yu took a closer look and saw that it was indeed a silver ear spotted beast whose ears had been cut off. The cuts on the ears were neat and flat. It didn't look like they were bitten off by other magical beasts. Instead, it looked more like they were cut off by some kind of sharp weapon. With its ears cut off, its strength will be greatly reduced. Why is it here at this time? Elder Yu couldn't understand. But soon he didn't have time to think about this. Because behind the silver ear spotted beast, there were actually more magical beasts approaching. Nightmare beast. 9 lightning giant ape. Golden eye ice bat. Looking at the figures that appeared one after another, Elder Yu's voice gradually trembled. Why are there so many divine beasts all of a sudden? From the looks of it, they were all targeting Chu Yu. What kind of sin did this kid commit? The previously calm and collected elder Yu finally couldn't help but explode. Chuyu wasn't preparing to break through this time. They had waited outside for so long, but they didn't even notice any movement. Why did it attract so many divine beasts? Elder Huafeng grabbed him by the collar. Yu, didn't you just say there was no problem? What was going on now? I don't know either. I shouldn't have listened to you. We should have just gone over there. Elder Huafeng gave him a hard shove. Now that so many divine beasts have come, it will be difficult to pass. If the two of them work together, they might be able to deal with a few of them. But now the number had far exceeded their expectations. Even if they tried to stop him, it would be futile. Wanjing only has this one precious disciple. Furthermore, Chu Yu and Rong Xiu have an extraordinary relationship. If something were to happen to him, Elder Huafeng's throat was dry. What do you think we should do in this situation? Elder Yu looked conflicted. At this moment his gaze suddenly froze. Wait. Behind the group of divine beasts, a familiar figure suddenly ran forward. It was the steel spine beast cub that had left in a hurry just now. At this moment, it had already run in front of the divine beasts and ran back to the cave at its fastest speed. Throughout the entire process, none of the divine beasts stopped it. In fact, there was even a faint feeling that it was following him as he walked up. What's wrong? Elder Huafeng saw that his expression was not right and became even more worried. Look, Elder Yu raised his hand and said in disbelief. They seem to be following that steel spine beast cub. How is that possible? Elder Huafeng subconsciously refuted. Although he didn't come to this beast park often, he knew that the steel spine beast was a 9th grade divine beast when it was a cub. It was already good enough that these divine beasts didn't bully it. How could they follow it? But then he realized that what Elder Yu said seemed to be true. These divine beasts usually minded their own business. They each occupied their own mountains and didn't interact much. However, at this moment they had gathered together, which was rare. Moreover, they didn't fight with each other. Instead, they were all heading in the same direction. He turned his gaze and held his breath. They seemed to be following that steel spine beast cub to the cave halfway up the mountain. Geez, what is he doing? Elder Huafeng couldn't help but mutter in a low voice. His face was filled with shock. He never dreamed that he would be able to see such a scene in his lifetime. Elder Yu didn't say a word. The expression on his face seemed to be frozen. Only his pair of surging eyes revealed that his mood was not calm at this moment. Could it be that Chuyu was really planning to break through again? But if that was the case, these divine beasts would definitely not have such a reaction. They were silent and tacitly heading in the same direction. It was as if they were carrying out some kind of order. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Elder Yu suppressed it. It was too ridiculous. How was this possible? Only those two ancient divine beasts could summon all the divine beasts in the world. Boom. A huge roar suddenly came out from the cave. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:13. With this loud noise, a vast and turbulent power erupted from the cave. The mountain peak shook violently as if it was in danger of collapsing at any time. The two elders' hearts were in a mess. Then they saw that the divine beasts did not leave after hearing the noise. Instead, they suddenly sped up and rushed into the cave. The first to arrive was Emotionke. A few Emotionke glanced at Dumpling lying on the ground and felt the pressure on her body. They all took a step back subconsciously. Chu Liyue looked up and glanced at them. Immediately after, the Emo sky sparrows quickly flew forward and lined up in a row. One of them, Chu Liyue, looked quite familiar. Looking at the fluffy wing that had just grown out, she narrowed her eyes. You came quite quickly. The few Emotionke were angry but did not dare to say anything. They straightened their small bodies. Chu Liyue raised her hand. A part of the power was transferred to them. The ones behind come one by one. Chu Liyue said lightly. The few magical beasts that had just entered were stunned. They looked at each other and did not know who would go first. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly and was a little impatient. Just follow the order of the fight with me before. Oh, it's the order of being beaten. The few of them quickly understood and hurriedly lined up. Chu Liyue slowly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and showed a rare satisfied smile. In fact, she was almost unable to hold on at this time. She was just relying on the last of her willpower to hold on. She raised her finger and another part of the power was shared. This time the pressure on Chu Luiwei and Aqiong was reduced by a lot. She closed her eyes and smiled faintly. Her voice was a little hoarse and lazy. Very good. As obedient as before. All the divine beasts entered the cave one after another. The surroundings seemed to have returned to peace. Except for the energy that was spreading and getting stronger and stronger, everything seemed to be the same as before. The two elders stood in the air in a daze, completely confused by what was happening in front of them. These divine beasts went in just like that. Elder Huafeng swallowed hard. Still waiting in line. What was wrong with this world? You say something. Elder Yu rubbed his forehead. What do you want me to say? You have stayed in this beast park for such a long time, you should know more than me, right? What was going on? Elder Huafeng was both shocked and worried. Elder Yu glanced at him and faintly said, Do I look like I know? But Chu Yu is still inside. Rather than worrying about him, why don't you worry about the demonic beasts in the beast park? Elder Yu took a deep breath. He had worked so hard to take care of the beast park, but in the end he was worse off than a brat. Elder Huafeng frowned. This power that is constantly spreading doesn't seem to belong to Chu Yu. He didn't guess wrongly. Perhaps it was the aura of the red-tailed phoenix? Not bad. Elder Yu looked at the mountain peak. His contracted divine beast, the red-tailed red phoenix, is probably undergoing the awakening of its bloodline power. And, he paused and suddenly turned around to ask, who else knows that Chu Yu is here? Let me think. Other than Zhuosheng and Luo Yanming, there shouldn't be anyone else. Elder Huafeng hesitated and said, but I don't know if anyone else saw him on the way. Try your best to block the news. If anyone talks about it, just say that he went over there. Elder Yu pointed to a few mountain peaks outside the beast park. With you as a witness, I don't think anyone will doubt it. Elder Huafeng nodded and couldn't help but ask, I know that coming to the beast park isn't a good thing in the academy, but I don't think that's the only reason, right? Elder Yu nodded. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. It's not good to be too ostentatious. What do you mean? Let's wait and see. Chu Yu's red-tailed phoenix is probably going to cause a big commotion this time. The calm before the storm always made people panic. Time slowly passed. Gradually, the divine beasts that had entered the cave earlier began to come out one after another. From the outside there was almost no difference from when they entered. After they came out, they didn't stay for long and quickly dispersed. However, as this process progressed, the power that was constantly spreading in the cave was also rapidly increasing. Several cracks had already appeared on the mountain peak. The entire mountain was on the verge of collapse. Some mountain rocks began to roll down. Everything seemed to be indicating that a shocking change was about to happen. With the help of these divine beasts, Chu Luiwei felt much more relaxed. She had even gradually gotten used to the painful tearing feeling. The force in her body was almost exhausted. Chu Luiwei tried her best to help Dumpling circulate her strength while trying her best to heal the injuries in her body. Suddenly, Dumpling's wings moved. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, the water droplet in her dantian seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and slowly began to spin. Surging power surged out one after another. Almost at the same time, a ball of red flames suddenly erupted from Dumpling's body. Bang! The raging flames completely enveloped her body. The power that had been hovering around its body was rapidly converging into its body. Chu Luiwei's eyes lit up. Dumpling was going to wake up. However, at this moment, the divine beasts next to her suddenly seemed to have sensed a terrifying existence and retreated one after another. They looked at Dumpling with undisguised deep fear and awe. Chu Luiwei seemed to have sensed something and looked at Dumpling. A cluster of golden flames suddenly burst out. Digression, rounded up. That's it for today. Tomorrow is still a day of hard work. The update time may not be too stable, so everyone can read it together later. Walk past with a proud face. Today is a February that will be praised. Dance with the small ticket. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 13-14. This golden flame was extremely dazzling. The moment it appeared, it lit up the whole cave instantly. An indescribably vast aura spread out from it. Chu Liyue was shocked, and the water droplets in her body rotated faster unconsciously. The force in her body began to rotate at a more unusual speed. Woo! A low whimper came. It was the evil beasts around. At this time they all bent down and looked at the burning flame, trembling. That was the absolute pressure from the bloodline. It was a complete suppression. Even Ah Cheong stood up with difficulty. She took Tao Tao back a few steps. In the cave, the brilliant fire was shining as if it was daytime. In the middle there was a person and a beast. Chu Liyue stared at the golden flame and the red flame. As time went by, the surrounding red flame seemed to gradually turn into golden flame. The light became brighter and brighter. Chu Liyue said, "You all go out first." Hearing her words, many evil beasts nodded hurriedly and retreated. Cheong, you and Tao Tao also go outside to guard first. Cheong looked at her hesitantly, but finally she obeyed her order and left with Tao Tao. The injuries on its body were quite serious. Its skin and flesh were chapped and blood was flowing out. Many of its wounds looked like they were badly mutilated. It could be seen that it had suffered a terrible attack just now. Wherever they passed, there was a line of blood with different depths on the ground. After they all left, Chu Liyue took back her sight and looked at Dumpling. Dumpling's eyelids moved as if she was aware of her gaze. Chu Liyue smiled in a low voice. "You have to pay off the debt you owe when you go out." Dumpling didn't say anything, but the flame on her body burned more fiercely. The two elders stared at the mountain peak nervously. More and more divine beasts came out. But after they reached the foot of the mountain they didn't leave. Instead they stopped and looked at the mountainside together as if they were waiting for something. What are they doing? Elder Huafeng was confused by this scene. The ones from before all scattered. Why are they not leaving now that they've come out? Elder Yu didn't say anything, but his expression became even more serious. The guess in his heart might really come true. More and more cracks appeared on the mountain peak. Trees collapsed one after another and rocks rolled down the mountain. The surrounding heaven and earth energy began to surge toward them. In the end it formed a huge energy vortex which looked very shocking. Dark clouds rolled and the wind howled. Anyone could see that the mountain was about to be destroyed. Furthermore, something even more shocking must have happened. A storm was brewing. Elder Huafeng gradually felt a trace of uneasiness. He pursed his lips tightly and didn't say anything else. The surroundings quieted down. It was like an undercurrent on the surface of the water, ready to erupt at any time. A day passed quickly and in the blink of an eye it was evening. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, Shuixing paced back and forth in front of the house with an anxious expression. Luo Yanming, who was sitting in the room, finally couldn't help but say, "Shuixing, you're making me dizzy. Can't you sit down and wait?" "I can't sit down." Shuixing scratched his head with a frustrated expression. "Tell me, where did Chu Yu and Elder Huafeng go? It's been half a day but we haven't seen a single person." "Sigh, if only we had caught up in time." Luo Yanming looked at him suspiciously. "Do you have some misunderstanding about your own strength, or do you think too highly of me? Do you actually think that the two of us can catch up to my master?" The situation had happened suddenly. After Chu Yu came out of Nineheng Mountain he quickly disappeared. Elder Huafeng followed closely behind, and he didn't even have time to say a word before running away. Originally, Shuixing and Luo Yanming had planned to follow them, but they lost them not long after. Helpless, the two of them could only choose to return first. They planned to wait for Elder Huafeng and the others to return before asking in detail what was going on. Although they were worried about Chu Yu, Elder Huafeng was a respected elder of the academy after all. With him around they could feel a little more at ease. Who knew that this wait would last for nearly a day? Elder Huafeng and Chu Yu didn't show any signs of returning. The two of them didn't dare to go outside and ask around, so they could only continue to scratch their heads and wait. Hearing this, Shuixing was a little disheartened. "It's strange. You said that Elder Huafeng's strength is tyrannical, so it's normal that we can't catch up. But why is Chu Yu's speed so fast?" At that time he hadn't seen anything clearly and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. "It's not bad that he's a 9th grade celestial physician now, but his cultivation level isn't as high as mine. How can he be faster than me?" Shuixing really couldn't understand. "Moreover, I don't know if it's an illusion or not, but when he rushed past me I felt that his aura was not much worse than mine." He was more conservative with his words. In fact, when he thought about it later he even felt that he was slightly inferior to the other party. But Chu Yu was indeed only a 7th-rank warrior some time ago, which everyone saw with their own eyes. Even if he was a genius, it was impossible to break through so much in such a short period of time, right? What's so strange about this? Compared to Zhuo Sheng's shock and suspicion, Luo Yanming was much calmer. He smiled. Do you really think that he's only talented as a celestial physician? The corner of Zhuo Sheng's eyes twitched. What do you mean by that? Luo Yanming's lips moved, and in the end he only said, how can he be an ordinary person to be valued so highly by senior brother Rong Xiao? I just feel that what he has displayed now is not his true strength. That's true. Chu Yu has always been unpredictable, and he has hidden his strength deeply. Zhuo Xing nodded in agreement and said again, however, I still hope that nothing will happen to him this time. It's fine as long as he's fine. Let's wait and see. Luo Yanming said. Night. Beast Park. Elder Hua Feng and Zhuo Xing were still waiting. The surroundings had already darkened, and only on the mountain peak, a bright glow shone out from the cave. Moreover, as time passed, the light became more and more dazzling. Suddenly, the huge energy vortex stopped spinning, and then swept away with the dark clouds in the sky. An exceptionally clear sound of the mountain rocks shattering could be heard. In the quiet mountain forest, it was exceptionally clear. The two elders looked at each other and saw the nervousness in each other's eyes. Boom! The mountain peak, which had long been on the verge of collapse, exploded from the inside out by a terrifying force. A thick reddish-gold flame that seemed to be unable to dissipate soared into the sky. Amidst it, an astonishing aura that seemed to have come from ancient times swept across the entire sky in a grandiose manner. Whoosh! A pair of huge wings suddenly spread out. Screech! Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-15. Clear. Melodious. Majestic. A clear cry shook the heavens and earth. Countless magical beasts that had been waiting quietly in the surroundings for a day heard this command. Their spirits were lifted, and they immediately let out a cry in unison. In his voice, there was neither the arrogance nor the ruthlessness of a divine beast. There was only complete submission and reverence. In the next moment, these magical beasts actually knelt on the ground. They were trembling with fear, but they were also filled with piety and reverence. That was admiration and reverence for the most noble bloodline in the world. Such a scene truly shocked the two elders both physically and mentally. Elder Hua Feng widened his eyes in shock. That is... An absurd and daring conjecture flashed through his mind. But because it was too unbelievable, he found it difficult to say those words. Red gold flames. In the world, only one kind of magical beast had such a flame. Even though Elder Yu had already guessed this result in his heart, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. He took a deep breath and seemed to be able to smell the unique smell of the flames burning fiercely in the air. It was as if everything was going to be burned to ashes. That is, the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Every word seemed to carry a great weight, like a stone crashing down, causing people's hearts to tremble. How can it be? Elder Hua Feng's expression was dull as he muttered in disbelief. The crimson gold heavenly phoenix hasn't appeared on the continent for 3,000 years, but now... That was Chu Yu's contracted magical beast. This fact constantly impacted Elder Hua Feng's heart, causing him to feel a little dizzy. Elder Yu raised his head and looked at the red gold figure in the black night sky with a complicated expression. If he hadn't seen all of this with his own eyes, he would have thought that this was a dreamlike environment. The red-tailed phoenix originally had the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix flowing in its body. Among the many magical beasts in the world, it is the most likely existence to break through the shackles and become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. However, it is very difficult to achieve this step. With generations of inheritance, the current red-tailed phoenix's bloodline power is thin. Logically speaking, there is almost no such possibility. But Chu Yu's contracted magical beast did it. How could this not be shocking? No wonder those magical beasts were so obedient just now. So, it was because they had already predicted the birth of this crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Elder Hua Feng seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and a look of understanding appeared on his face. Apart from the two ancient godly beasts, who else would have such terrifying charisma? In the next moment, a slender figure leaped up from below. It was Chu Luiyue, whom the two elders had been waiting for a long time. At this moment her clothes were already stained with blood stains. Her complexion was also incomparably pale. She appeared to be in a very sorry state. However, only that pair of eyes were as bright as the stars, flickering with dazzling light. Sensing her arrival, the crimson gold celestial phoenix in the sky, which was being worshipped by many demonic beasts, looked down. Then it flapped its wings and flew towards Chu Luiyue. In the black night sky, a reddish-gold arc was drawn. In the next second it was already in front of Chu Luiyue. A human and a beast stood facing each other. Chu Luiyue's originally tall figure instantly appeared much smaller in the contrast of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. However, for some reason she stood there quietly. Her aura did not lose to the crimson gold celestial phoenix. Under such a contrast she still did not lose her brilliance. Dumpling. Chu Luiyue looked at Dumpling, who had completely changed her appearance in front of her. Something seemed to be surging between her chest and abdomen. Her heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out. She had already guessed that Dumpling might break through this bloodline awakening, but she did not expect that it would directly step into the threshold of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. No wonder it did not wake up for so long. It turned out that it was brewing such a big move. It was not in vain that she spent so much effort to help it. She carefully sized up Dumpling. Its size was not much different from before, but the red feathers all over its body had turned into a reddish-gold color. Its two claws were snow-white, but its eyes had turned into a rich black color. At a glance it was sparkling and moist but also seemed bottomless. Only occasionally when its eyes moved, one could catch a glimpse of a gorgeous light flashing by. From this pair of eyes, Chu Luiyue could clearly see her own reflection. Dumpling lowered its head and intimately rubbed against her face gently. Its body was burning with reddish-gold flames, but when Chu Luiyue touched these flames, she did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead she felt that they naturally merged together. Of course, this was her contracted magical beast. Feeling the heat from Dumpling's body, the soft feathers, and the strong attachment and intimacy, Chu Luiyue could not help but take a step forward and hug Dumpling's neck tightly with both hands. Fortunately, Tuanzi was safe and sound by her side in the end. Looking at the woman and beast hugging together, the many divine beasts below all quieted down. Looking at Chu Luiyue, there was only reverence and awe in their eyes. Previously they were afraid of being beaten by her and did not dare to say anything, but now they did not even dare to be angry. She had contracted with one of the two most noble ancient divine beasts in the world, and could be considered to be above all other beasts. What was there to make a fuss about? In the future they could only be obedient. This kid, I'm afraid that his future will be limitless. Elder Yu still could not completely calm down, but he finally accepted everything that had happened. Looking at how close Chu Luiyue and Dumpling were, he could not help but laugh bitterly. I knew that he was powerful, but I did not expect that he would encounter such an opportunity. Luck and strength neither could be missing. Previously, when he heard that Chu Yu had accidentally obtained the Red Cloud Sword, he was somewhat unconvinced. There were so many elders and so many outstanding students in the academy, but in the end, a young man who had just arrived at the academy took advantage of it. No matter who heard it, it was impossible for them to be completely calm. But today he finally understood. What was a Red Cloud Sword? A contracted magical beast breaking through and becoming an ancient divine beast in one fell swoop. This was what made people speechless. After all, in the entire continent, there were not many venerable artifacts like the Red Cloud Sword. But how many magical beasts were there in the world? Just in their Lingxiao College alone, he had seen 4 or 5 red-tailed phoenixes over the years. Not to mention the entire Divine Ruins world. There would definitely be more discussions. But Chu Yu's beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. How could this be reasonable? Phew, you're right. Elder Hua Feng let out a long breath, rubbed his face hard and sighed sincerely. Fortunately, I don't have a contract with a magical beast. Otherwise, I would be angered to death when I saw this scene. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-16. Chu Luiyue touched Dumpling and then let go, raising his chin at the many magical beasts below. In order to help you just now, they all put in a lot of effort. The magical beasts who were suddenly praised immediately perked up. but their expressions were somewhat perturbed and nervous. Help? Put in effort? Oh no. Of course. To be able to witness the birth of the ancient crimson gold heavenly phoenix with their own eyes was already a blessing of 3 lifetimes. How would they dare to ask for more? In the beginning they came here indeed because of Chu Liyue. But now it was absolutely not the case. That little bit complaint towards Chu Liyue when they came had already vanished into thin air at this time, and they even faintly felt some gratitude. To magical beasts the bloodline hierarchy was very strict. Not to mention this help, even if they were asked to give up their lives, they would absolutely have no way to complain. This was the majesty of the ancient divine beasts. Dumpling followed Chu Liyue's line of sight and looked down. Whoosh, with a flap of its wings, a crimson gold flame suddenly flew out, drawing a beautiful arc in midair. Then with a bang that flame shattered into countless sparks and scattered in all directions. These sparks landed on many magical beasts and upon contact they quickly melted away. Immediately after, the injuries on their bodies began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Their injuries were originally caused by Dumpling's awakening of the bloodline power, so at this time, it could be said that the problem had been solved fundamentally, so the effect was exceptionally good. Many magical beasts were all overwhelmed by the favor, and another wave of respectful kneeling and thanking. To be able to help the crimson gold heavenly phoenix break through and be nourished by its power was extremely rare to them, and it was also quite beneficial, so they were naturally full of gratitude. Even when they looked at Chu Liyue, their eyes were especially docile and respectful. Dumpling's action was obviously to tell them who was the one who had the final say. The divine beasts that appeared here were not stupid, so naturally they went with the flow. Screech. Dumpling let out a clear cry again. Many magical beasts gradually began to retreat. In a short while the magical beasts around the mountain all dispersed. Everything seemed to have finally returned to normal. Dumpling's body flashed and turned back into a small one. Compared to before, it looked much more exquisite and beautiful. It blinked and plunged into Chu Liyue's arms. Chu Liyue hugged it tightly and couldn't help but laugh, her eyes curved. Dumpling's little head rubbed against her shoulder affectionately. A clear and crisp sound entered his ears. Chu Liyue suddenly froze. Dumpling's voice? I miss you so much. Chu Yu. Just as Chu Liyue was about to say a few more words to Dumpling, a familiar voice suddenly came from the side. She raised her head and smiled. Greetings, elders. Elder Huafeng looked at Dumpling, who was in Chu Liyue's arms, with curiosity and shock in his eyes. After all, this was the first time he had seen a crimson gold heavenly phoenix with his own eyes. Especially, it was contracted with a human. Chu, how are you feeling? Elder Yu was still relatively calm. Looking at Chu Liyue's sorry state, he asked with concern. Chu Liyue smiled and said, Elder, don't worry. I'm fine. Although she had suffered some injuries before after Dumpling broke through, these injuries had been rapidly healing due to the contract. She even felt that she seemed to be stronger than before. That's good. Elder Yu heaved a sigh of relief. As long as she was fine, everything else was fine. Only then did his gaze fall on Dumpling. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke cautiously. I haven't congratulated you yet. Your contracted divine beast has broken through. Thank you, Elder. Chu Liyue patted Dumpling gently and placed it on his shoulder. His expression became much more serious. Actually, this student has something that I want to ask the 2 elders. Speak. That is, can I trouble the 2 elders to keep today's matter a secret for me for the time being? The 2 elders looked at each other. Now that he thought of asking this, don't worry, this is a matter of great importance. Unless you take the initiative to say it yourself, the 2 of us will never reveal a single word about this matter. Elder Yu said word by word. Elder Huafeng also nodded quickly. That's right. We definitely won't say anything. What a joke. If this matter were to spread, wouldn't this child be thrown out as a target? If he was a god rank expert now, he wouldn't say anything. Unfortunately, he was only at rank 8. Although his combat strength was stronger than an ordinary rank 8 warrior, he was still only at rank 8. Under such circumstances, it was better to keep a low profile. As for Zhuoxing and Luo Yinming, I'll talk to them later. I definitely won't doubt you. As Elder Huafeng spoke, he felt that this was nonsense. Who would suspect that Chu Yu's magical beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Even if they were given 10 times more imagination, it wouldn't be enough. If he wasn't here and saw everything clearly from the beginning to the end, his first reaction when he heard this would definitely be to think that it was a joke. Hearing what they said, Chu Luiyue felt much more at ease. The words of these two elders were still credible. Before she was strong enough, it was better to not expose these bedfellows as much as possible. It was a pity that she wouldn't be able to summon Dumpling out at will for a while. "Thank you, Elder." Chu Luiyue bowed politely to the two of them again. Elder Yu looked at her, then at Dumpling, and suddenly asked, "How did your red-tailed phoenix suddenly break through?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-17. It was true that the red-tailed red phoenix possessed the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, but it was not so simple to cross this threshold. Elder Yu had seen many red-tailed red phoenixes over the years, so he was especially curious when he encountered such a situation. There should be some kind of opportunity, right? Elder Yu crossed his arms and tapped his fingers lightly on his arm. After all, even if it has a strong bloodline power in its body, it will take a lot of energy to activate it. And this was definitely not something a rank 8 warrior cultivator could do. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment she had the illusion that there was nowhere to hide. Elder Yu was indeed experienced in guarding the Beast Park for many years, and he was also very knowledgeable in this aspect. Otherwise he would definitely not ask such a question. That's right. Chu Yu, the origin of your magical beast should be very unusual, right? Or perhaps it has encountered some kind of opportunity. Elder Huafeng also interrupted and asked a few questions. He had experienced a lot with Chu Luiyue, and even looking at her contracted magical beast he felt that it was the chosen one and was very lucky. Chu Luiyue paused, and the corners of her lips curled up into a faint smile. Dumpling is a magical beast that I accidentally contracted a long time ago. As far as I know, it shouldn't have any amazing background. It's just an ordinary red-tailed red phoenix. As for why it broke through this time, she blinked her eyes and her expression was a little helpless. I'm not very sure either. However, it has been sleeping during this period of time, and no matter how I called it, it wouldn't wake up. When it suddenly woke up today, I realized that something was wrong, so I hurriedly brought it over. Elder Yu pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. That's it. The reason why it fell into a deep sleep for a long time should be to activate its bloodline power, and it only erupted today and directly broke through. Chu Yu, your luck is really unparalleled. This simply made people lose the energy to be envious. The heavens were unfair to begin with. Some people worked hard and got nothing, but some could always get the right opportunity at the right time. Of course, in Elder Yu's opinion, Chu Luiyue did not completely rely on luck to have everything she had today. If it was someone else who had experienced the few crises she had faced, they would have been beaten to a pulp, and they might not even be able to keep their lives. Being able to grasp luck was also a kind of strength. Chu Luiyue smiled. Elder Huafeng looked at her pale face and felt his heart ache. All right. If you have anything to say, you can say it tomorrow. Chu Yu, you've suffered quite a bit today. Come back with me and recuperate first. Look at this small body, don't have any side effects. Chu Liyue's heart. Okay. Elder Huafeng personally sent Chu Luiyue back to Mount Jiuheng. After ascertaining that her body was indeed fine, he gave her a few more words of advice, telling her not to worry, and then left. As Yulin, he read White Jade. After watching Elder Huafeng leave, Chu Luiyue returned to her room. A look of contemplation flashed across her eyes. The two elders said that they would help keep it a secret. She firmly believed in this without a doubt. However, they might not be unsuspicious and curious about her. After returning, as long as they thought about it carefully, they would definitely be able to think of many unreasonable things. For example, why was the first place she went to when she was in trouble? For example, why was she able to summon so many magical beasts when she was in danger? Not to mention, Dumpling's breakthrough was so sudden. She did not see anything today, but there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. No one could guarantee that one day in the future, Dumpling would break through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix with the help of the Tianlei in the Thousand Wine Mountains spring. She could use some answers to these questions for the time being, but what about in the future? Chu Luiyue did not feel that she could hide it forever. However, she had no choice but to bring Dumpling to the Beast Park today. Under those circumstances, she had to rely on the help of other divine beasts to resolve the crisis. Later on, the facts also proved that if she really relied on the help of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she might not be able to survive. This was the best outcome. Chu Liyue shook her head and suppressed all these noisy thoughts. She changed out of her dirty clothes and took a hot bath, which was rare for her. She even put some medicinal herbs in the water to nurse her injuries. An hour later, she finally tidied up and changed into a clean and comfortable set of clothes. Only then did she feel alive. Fortunately, the injuries on her body were not serious. Chu Liyue used some medicine herself and would be able to recover after a period of time. When she came out, Dumpling, who had been waiting for a long time, could not help but pounce on her. However, this time Chu Liyue directly raised her hand and grabbed it. She grabbed Dumpling's wings and lifted it up. The human and the beast looked at each other. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows and smiled. Dumpling. This smile made Dumpling shiver unconsciously. For a moment, it actually had the urge to run away. Unfortunately, Chu Liyue grabbed its wings and it could not move at all. Therefore, it could only look at Chu Liyue. Dumpling, I have a few things to ask you. You must tell me honestly, okay? Tuanzi blinked her eyes and nodded hard. Chu Liyue was quite satisfied with its attitude and directly asked, "How much do you remember from the past?" Dumpling was stunned for a moment. Chu Liyue's smile deepened and she reminded, "Take note, when I said the past, I was referring to the last time I came to the world of God. If I remember correctly, you came with me at that time, right?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 13:18. The room instantly fell silent. Dumpling looked away guiltily. Chu Liyue pinched its little head and turned back. "Didn't you say that you missed me very much? Don't you want to talk and reminisce about the past?" It just so happened that Dumpling could speak directly after breaking through, which saved her a lot of trouble. Dumpling turned its head to the other side again. This time Chu Liyue did not care about it anymore. Instead, she let go of her hand and turned to walk towards the bedroom. "Since you don't want to talk about it now, then don't. It won't be too late to come back when you want to talk about it." As she spoke, she actually went straight into the room and went to bed to rest. Dumpling, who was left behind, was dumbfounded. It hurriedly looked at Chu Liyue nervously, only to see that she had already laid down as if she was really going to sleep. The lights went out and the room darkened. Only the faint moonlight seeped in like water, outlining the outline of the room. Dumpling stayed where it was for a long time, its expression extremely conflicted. Just as it was about to step out with one paw, it quickly retracted it. Dumpling went back and forth several times, tormenting it quite a bit. After struggling for a while, it finally made up its mind and flew towards Chu Liyue. "Ah, you." Dumpling nestled beside Chu Liyue's pillow and called out carefully. Chu Liyue turned to look at it. "You want to talk about it?" Dumpling's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle, but in the end, it nodded its little head in embarrassment. Chu Liyue sat up. "Then let's begin." After settling Chu Liyue down, Elder Huafeng returned to his residence, only to find that Luo Yanming and Zhuoxing were still waiting for him. "Master." Elder Huafeng. Seeing Elder Huafeng's familiar figure, the two of them, who had been waiting for so long, cried out in surprise. Zhuoxing moved even faster and rushed over with a few leaps. "Elder, you're finally back. How is Chuyu now? Are the two of you all right?" A series of questions bombarded Elder Huafeng's head until it began to ache. But when he thought about how both of them had good intentions, he couldn't bear to get angry. "Don't worry, that kid is fine." Although his body was slightly injured, he had obtained a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. If this was not considered good, then no one in this world could live a good life. Seeing Elder Huafeng's reaction, Zhuoxing finally relaxed. That's good. Elder, please rest first. Let's go take a look at Chuyu." As Zhuoxing spoke, he wanted to pull Luo Yanming away. "Wait." Elder Huafeng shouted at the two of them. Elder Huafeng coughed when he saw their puzzled gazes. "It's already so late. He should be asleep by the time he gets back. It's not appropriate for you to go now." The two of them thought about it and agreed. "Then let's go tomorrow," Luo Yanming said to Zhuoxing. Zhuoxing nodded. Only then did Elder Huafeng relax. By tomorrow, Everything should be more or less recovered. That's good too. Alright, there's one more thing. Try not to make a fuss about what happened today. Hehe. Elder Hua Feng hesitated for a moment. Recently, there have been quite a lot of rumors about him in the academy. Let's not add to this at this time. Give him some time to quietly recuperate. The two of them didn't doubt him and agreed. Yes. The next day, just as dawn broke, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot and there was a faint bruise under her eyes. It was obvious that she didn't sleep well last night. She turned her head and looked to the side. Dumpling was nestled beside her. Hearing the movement, Dumpling immediately woke up. Meeting Chu Luiyue's gaze, Dumpling blinked in a daze, leaned over and rubbed against Chu Luiyue's cheek. Chu Luiyue's heart instantly softened. She gently rubbed Dumpling's head. All right, it's time to get up. Dumpling glanced at her. Isn't you angry with me? Chu Luiyue paused and smiled. What's there to be angry about? Didn't you already tell me everything you know? Tuanzi lowered its head and rubbed its head against her palm. Suddenly, two familiar voices came from outside. Chu Luiyue stood up and carried Dumpling up. All right, you've just broken through, so you should rest well first. You shouldn't be able to come out for a while, understand? Dumpling nodded and disappeared. Chu Luiyue then walked outside. The ones who came to visit her were Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng. Even though Chu Luiyue didn't sleep well the entire night, her injuries had recovered quite a bit. Hence, at a glance, other than making others think that she didn't sleep well, there wouldn't be any other problems. Seeing Chu Luiyue like this, the two of them were relieved. It's fine as long as you're fine. Yesterday, Zhuosheng was halfway through his words when he suddenly remembered that he had promised not to talk about this matter, so he quickly shut up. Luo Yanming calmly changed the topic. By the way, Chuyu, today is the Academy's open day. Do you want to go out for a walk? The so-called open day was actually a holiday that Soaring Heaven Academy held once every 3 months. It usually lasted for 3 days. During these 3 days, students could leave the academy, and the elders wouldn't ask any questions. Many students would take advantage of this time to go out and relax. For those who were closer, they could make a trip home. As for the rest, they would wander around Fangzhou City. Zhuosheng immediately became interested. That's right. We've been in the academy for so long, but we haven't gone out yet. Chuyu, let's go together. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 13-19. Fangzhou City was right next to Lingshao College. Countless cultivators from all over the world who wanted to enter Lingshao College were gathered here. In many people's eyes, Fangzhou City was a transit station to enter Lingshao College. But in reality it was far more than that. Because it was not under the jurisdiction of any faction, people from all walks of life gathered in Fangzhou City. Could be said that good and bad people mixed together. But because they were afraid of Lingshao College when they were in the city, they were more polite and honest to each other. But if you stayed in Fangzhou City for a long time and learned more about it, you would find that this place was far more exciting than you could imagine. Even for the students of the Spirit Firmament Academy, Fang State City was a place that held great allure. Often some students would enter the city for activities. Some were there to buy things, some were there to learn from others, and some were there to do anything else they wanted to do. There was a high degree of freedom and there was a college elder guarding it. Many students of Lingshao College liked to go to Fangzhou City. Chu Luiyue originally wanted to refuse, but seeing that the two of them were inviting her warmly, she couldn't bear to refuse and nodded. Okay. She had experienced too many things during this period of time. It was a good opportunity for her to relax and change her mood. After discussing, the three of them immediately went straight to the barrier. Along the way, Chu Luiyue saw that many people were going in the same direction as them. Obviously, they were also going out. It could be seen how precious these 3 days were to the students. In the college, many people were always in a state of extreme tension. After a long time, it was inevitable that they would be tired. Of course, everyone was happy to have these 3 days to go out and wander. When they reached the entrance of the college, Chu Luiyue saw at a glance that there were 2 elders guarding it together. And the students who wanted to go out had already formed a line. Chu Luiyue and the other 2 stood at the end of the line obediently. Fortunately, the elders were very efficient. As long as the students took out their black jade tokens and placed them on the barrier, the elders would quickly respond and open the barrier to let them go. Soon it was Chu Luyue and the other two's turn. Luo Yanming and Zhuoxing passed one after another. Finally it was Chu Luyue's turn. Chu Yu. The two elders looked up and recognized Chu Luyue at the same time. Then they quickly became vigilant. They both stepped forward and blocked Chu Luyue's path. What do you want? Chu Luyue blushed with shame when he saw the two elders acting like they were facing a formidable enemy. He immediately took out his black jade token. Elders, please don't misunderstand. I just want to go out for a stroll. I don't want to do anything else. As he spoke, he passed the black jade token over. The two elders looked at each other suspiciously. One of them took the item and placed it on the barrier. A stream of light flashed from the barrier and then quickly disappeared. That seems to be the case. Only then did the two elders feel a little relieved. They sized up Chu Luyue a few more times before letting him go. Let's go. Only then was Chu Luyue able to cross the barrier and meet up with the two in front of him. Ha! Chu Yu, the elders are all afraid of you now. Zhuoxing laughed mercilessly. Who told you to always commit crimes in the past? Now you know how powerful you are. You almost couldn't even get out of the academy's gate. Chu Luyue rubbed his nose. Based on the frequency of him causing trouble, it seemed quite normal for the elders to be so wary of him. It's rare for us to come out. Let's not waste time here. Chu Luyue looked ahead. He could vaguely see a city. It was simple and majestic and extraordinarily lively. It was Fangzhou City. Let's go. This was the second time Chu Luyue came to Fangzhou City. The last time he came was a few months ago. At that time he was preparing to enter Lingxiao College. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye so much time had passed. Walking on the bustling streets, Chu Luyue suddenly had the illusion that a lifetime had passed. During this period of time he had basically stayed in the academy and almost forgot what it was like outside. At a glance he could see many young cultivators. It seemed that most of them were preparing to enter Lingxiao College. Chu Luyue and the other two walked on the streets and attracted the attention of many people. Although they came out in a hurry and were dressed casually, the aura they exuded was indeed quite eye-catching. Zhuoxing and Luo Yanming were both from genuine first-class aristocratic families. Their every move carried the aura of aristocratic families. As for Chu Luyue, although his face could only be considered delicate, his aura was clean and elegant. He didn't pale in comparison to the other two at all. It was normal for the three of them to attract attention when they walked together. Fortunately, the three of them didn't particularly care about this. They pretended not to see and strolled on their own. There were many vendors on both sides of the street. They each had a stall in front of them. Some were selling herbs, some were xian formations, and some were even selling divine artifacts. Although most of these things didn't catch the eyes of the three of them, there were still many interesting things. The three of them walked for about an hour before they reached the end of the long street. Actually, the things sold here can only be considered ordinary in Fangzhou City. If we really want to find something good, we have to go to another street. Zhuoxing raised his chin. Are we going? Chu Luyue looked at his expectant face and couldn't help but laugh. Why does it seem like you know this place very well? Have you been here before? I haven't been here before. But I've already asked my senior brothers and sisters a lot, so I more or less know a little. If we were like the two of you and came out without knowing anything, wouldn't we miss out on a lot of good things? Zhuoxing said proudly. Let's go. Today I'll take you to walk around Fangzhou City. Chu Luyue and Luo Yanming knew that he was going to have fun after leaving the academy. They laughed and agreed to follow him. Then it's a promise. If we don't see anything when we get there later, you have to treat us to a meal. Luo Yanming made a bet. No problem, hee. No problem. Zhuoxing agreed happily and was in high spirits. Chu Luyue followed behind and couldn't help but shake her head with a smile. Suddenly her eyes focused. Her feet were nailed to the ground as she stared at an item on the stall next to her. Chu, why aren't you walking? The two of them walked a few steps before they realized that Chu Luyue wasn't following them, so they walked back. What are you looking at? Chu Luyue didn't say anything. She walked over and picked up a wooden tablet on the ground. On the wooden tablet, a familiar totem was engraved. Digression. This is a small part of today's story. There will be more at noon and at night, working hard to write. Today is also a diligent February mobile users. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1320. Perhaps it was because of the passage of time, but the totem was almost worn out. If one did not look carefully, they would only think that it was just a few simple lines and would not think that it was some kind of totem. Only Chu Luiyue, who was too familiar with this totem, could recognize it at a glance. Chu Luiyue stared at the peddler behind the stall. This was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He was wearing an old gray cotton coat. He had a strong body and a face full of stubble. He seemed to be an ordinary peddler in Fangzhou City. "How much is this?" Chu Luiyue asked. The man raised his eyes to look at her hand and grinned. "Young master, you have good eyesight. This thing is a rare sea buckthorn wood. It's a top-grade medicinal herb. If you carry it with you, it can calm your mind and nourish your qi. It's very good for cultivation. If you really want this price." He held up 3 fingers. Chu Luiyue touched the wooden sign. "Although the sea buckthorn wood is good, it's not a top-grade precious treasure. Your asking price, isn't it too much? Where did you get this thing?" Hearing this, the peddler laughed. "Even if it's not precious, if you like it, isn't it a treasure? As for where this thing came from, I don't remember. You see, I have so many things, how can I remember where I got them from? If you really want it, I'll give you a discount, how about it? Do you really think we're fools? This thing is not even worth half of the price you said." Zhuoxing couldn't help but walk up and sneered. "Gee, if you want this sea buckthorn wood, learn. We have a lot of it, why waste this money?" Lingxiao College didn't have anything. He really didn't understand why Chuyu was interested in this thing. Chu Luiyue smiled. "It's rare to find a good one. It's not bad to buy it." Saying this, she said to the peddler, "Half price, I'll take it." Hearing this, the peddler immediately showed a happy expression. "Great. Young master is really generous." Zhuoxing wanted to persuade her again, but seeing that Chu Luiyue had made up her mind, she could only let her be. Chu Luiyue took out a money pouch and handed it over. The peddler happily took it. "If young master is interested in anything else, please feel free to choose." Chu Luiyue shook his head. "No need, I'll take this." With that, she looked at Zhuoxing. "Didn't you say you were going to bring us somewhere more lively? Let's go." Yes. Let's go. Over there." As he spoke, Zhuoxing took the lead and walked forward. Chu Luiyue and Luo Yanming followed closely behind. The 3 figures quickly disappeared around the corner. "Chuyu, isn't that just a wooden plate carved from sea buckthorn wood? What's so good about it? If you ask me, you really have too much money to spend." On the way, Zhuoxing was still brooding over the fact that Chu Luiyue had bought the wooden token. As a disciple of Lingxiao College, especially when Chuyu was a celestial physician, what good things had he not seen before? He came to Fangzhou City and actually bought such an item back. If word got out, he would probably be laughed at. Luo Yanming smiled faintly. "Zhuoxing, he bought it if he wanted. He didn't spend your money. Why are you thinking so much?" "I'm not. Hey Chuyu, why aren't you leaving?" As Zhuoxing was speaking, she saw Chu Luiyue suddenly stop, weigh the wooden token in her hand and then turn around and walk back. The remaining 2 were stunned for a moment. They thought that she was angry and hurriedly chased after her. "Hey Chuyu, what's wrong with you?" Zhuoxing scratched her head in embarrassment. "Is it because I talk too much that you don't want to listen?" Chu Luiyue shook her head. "No. I just found that the wooden token seems to be fake. You guys go ahead first. I'll ask that person for a refund. I'll meet you guys later." Fake? The 2 were a little surprised, but seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't seem to be faking it, they believed her. "How dare he sell fake goods? We have to teach him a lesson. We brothers will go with you." As Zhuoxing spoke, he rolled up his sleeves as if he was going to fight. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but look at him with a smile. "It's better that the 2 of you don't follow. Otherwise, what if things get out of hand? Don't forget, this is Fangzhou City. If anything happens, the academy will immediately know." Zhuoxing put down his sleeves embarrassedly. "Then can you do it alone? What if the other party doesn't admit it?" Chu Luiyue chuckled. "If I really can't, there are still elders of the academy in Fangzhou City. If anything happened to the students, they would definitely step in immediately. So you don't have to worry. I'll be back soon." Zhuoxing and Zhuoxing looked at each other and could only agree. "All right." Chu Luiyue went back the way she came and quickly returned to the street. She didn't go forward. Instead, she stood at the corner and glanced at the street. The peddler was nowhere to be seen. There was indeed a problem. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. She had left a special mark on the money bag. As long as it was within a radius of 30 miles, she would be able to detect the other party's tracks. She turned the universe ring in her hand and looked around. Finally, she ran in one direction. Fangzhou City's big and small streets were very lively. Chu Luiyue walked through them as usual, looking no different from the others. But in fact, she kept a certain distance from the other party. After walking 3 streets, Chu Luiyue finally realized that something was wrong. The other party seemed to be planning to leave the city. She stopped in her tracks. Either the other party was planning to leave or he was deliberately luring her out of the city. There were many elders and students of Lingxiao College in Fangzhou City. It was obviously very inconvenient. It was only convenient to do things outside the city. Chu Luiyue held the wooden token in her hand tightly. She could clearly feel the totem engraved on it. She only hesitated for a moment before she followed again. Soon she arrived at the city gate. There was no one guarding here, so there were many people going in and out. Chu Luiyue glanced around. She did not see the peddler's figure. He had already gone out. Chu Luiyue put away the wooden token and walked out of the city gate. When passing through the barrier at the city gate, Chu Luiyue deliberately suppressed the power in her body. Her dantian was calm. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief and look forward. Outside Fangzhou City was a boundless wasteland. The sky was gloomy as if it was going to rain. The place where the heaven and earth met was chaotic. Nothing could be seen clearly. On the wasteland there were people coming and going. But compared to the people in the city, there were much fewer people. Chu Luiyue looked over and finally saw a somewhat familiar figure. It was the peddler just now. She took a breath and quickly chased after him. The further away from Fangzhou City, the fewer people there were. Gradually there was no one else around. You deliberately lured me out. Now can we have a good chat? Chu Luiyue spoke clearly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1321. The man stood still and turned around. You're as smart as ever. At this moment, his face no longer had that eager and ingratiating smile from before. Instead, it was replaced by a faint smile that sent chills down one's spine. His voice had also become much more hoarse and deep, so gloomy that it made one uneasy. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt that this voice was somewhat familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere before. She frowned slightly and stared at the other party. Looks like we've met before. Now that she was wearing a mask, the other party might be the same. Since you dared to follow me out so directly, it looks like you're very confident in your own strength. The man laughed, but there was no smile in his eyes. His eyes were cold and he looked at Chu Luiyue as if he was looking at meat on a chopping board. It was as if victory was already in his grasp. Chu Luiyue became alert, and then a thought suddenly flashed in her mind. You're that person from the Black Demon Cave? She had only heard such a gloomy and cold voice from one person, the soul that had been lodged in Shangguanwan's body. On the day of Shangguanwan's wedding, Chu Luiyue had wanted to kill him, but he had escaped in the end. Most importantly, he seemed to have been coveting the water droplet in her body. Shoo! The man suddenly raised his finger and smiled sinisterly. That's not right. Although the Black Demon Cave's totem is carved on that wooden tablet, to be precise, I'm no longer from there. So you don't have to associate me with them. You should know very well why I'm here today. As he spoke, the man raised his hand, palm facing up, as if he was coaxing, but also as if he was ordering. Give me that thing. After a brief moment of dead silence, Chu Luiyue sneered mercilessly. She did not seem to care about the threat in the other party's words at all. She raised her eyebrows slightly and stared at him with a half-smile, as if she was watching a joke. You think I have to give it to you just because you want it? No one in the world has that much face before me. You think too highly of yourself. Hearing Chu Luiyue's sarcasm, the man was not angry. What a pity. I originally thought that everyone would be happy. You gave me that thing and I would spare your life. How nice would that be? Unfortunately, it seems that you don't value your life that much. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of dark green flame suddenly appeared in his palm. At the same time, his aura began to rise crazily. You're really haunting me, Chu Luiyue said coldly. Previously, when she was in the Tianling dynasty, she was unable to intercept and kill him, which had always been a regret. She didn't expect him to deliver himself to her doorstep today. This saved her a lot of effort. The origin power in his body started to circulate rapidly and rush toward his hand. A brilliant light appeared in Chu Liuyue's palm. Right at this moment, the man's hand suddenly clenched downward. In an instant, the water droplets in Chu Liuyue's body began to spin crazily. Moreover, he had a faint impulse to break free. Chu Liyue forcefully suppressed it, drawing out the divine power and pouring it into his palm. Soon, the dark clouds in the sky gathered toward them and strong winds blew everywhere. The energy of heaven and earth rushed toward Chu Liyue continuously. The wind lifted her long hair and her clothes fluttered. However, the man still seemed to be disdainful of Chu Liyue. He chuckled, his face full of mockery. "You overestimate yourself." He closed his eyes. The surrounding space began to freeze inch by inch. A true god-level powerhouse. Soon, with the two of them as the center, a large area of space around them had been controlled by this man. The flow of energy in Chu Liyue's body began to slow down, and her movements also became sluggish. However, she still made a move with difficulty. God-stuffing fist. Chu Liyue punched out. A fist shadow that emitted a brilliant light instantly crushed toward the opponent. Wherever it passed, the void shattered. Soon, large patches of black space cracks appeared. Now that Chu Liyue had broken through to the 8th stage, and this punch contained a trace of divine power, its power could not be underestimated. Last time, she was still unable to fight back under the opponent's attack. But now, only half a year had passed and Chu Liyue was already able to fight against it. What? This scene obviously shocked the man as well. He had already used his god realm and logically speaking, Chu Liyue should not be able to fight back at all. The power that could shatter a god realm was naturally divine power. He had expected Chu Liyue to enter Ling Shao Academy, and her strength must have improved, but he did not expect it to be to such an astonishing extent. The god-stuffing fist was almost unstoppable. It went straight for the man's face. At this moment, the man finally realized that he had underestimated Chu Liyue. The next moment, his expression turned cold and he went straight for Chu Liyue. However, the god-stuffing fist sensed his movement and immediately changed direction. Damn it! The man cursed violently and increased his speed again. However, the power of the god-stuffing fist did not decrease in the slightest, and he could not shake it off at all. He never thought that it would be so strenuous to deal with a rank 8 martial artist. This was clearly his own god realm, but he was the one being chased and beaten. In the end, he finally chose to face the attack head-on. A ball of dark green flame quickly condensed and then collided with the fist shadow. Boom! In an instant, a violent force exploded from the middle, and then crazily rushed out in all directions. The man's god realm was impacted and began to crack. The pressure around Chu Liyue decreased. Without hesitation, she immediately summoned the Scarlet Heaven Sword. The sword slashed down. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1322. A beam of sword light pierced through the sky. The piercing sword energy instantly cut through all obstacles and headed straight for the top of the man's head. Scarlet Heaven Sword was a rare venerable artifact. It had a great advantage, which was that it could quickly condense power and deal a fatal blow to the opponent. When Chu Liyue used the stupefying God Fist, she still needed some time to prepare and brew. However, when she swung Scarlet Heaven Sword, she did not need to do so at all. The sword followed the heart and was invincible. In an instant, Scarlet Heaven Sword could condense a shocking amount of power and slash down easily. It was the same at this moment. Venerable artifact. The man was pushed back a few steps by the frenzied power. Before he could stabilize himself, he felt an even more piercing aura coming at him. He looked up and a look of horror flashed in his eyes. Chu Liyue's eyes were filled with a strong killing intent. Apart from some of the Academy's elders, almost no one knew that she had a venerable artifact. For various reasons, the Academy's elders basically did not disclose this matter to outsiders. However, others might not know. Chu Liyue knew all too well what kind of commotion would occur if news of her having a venerable artifact spread. Therefore, this man must die today. Thinking of this, she tapped her toes and flew forward, slashing down a second time. In Fang State City. After Chu Liyue left, Shuo Xing and Luo Ming went to a nearby tea house, wanting to wait for her to come back and shop together. However, after waiting for a long time and changing their tea, Chu Liwei still had not returned. It shouldn't take that long to return something, right? Zhuosheng looked down from the window on the second floor. The streets were bustling with people coming and going, but that familiar figure was nowhere to be seen. Could it be that that person refused to return it and the two of them started arguing? Luo Yanming thought for a moment and shook her head. Probably not. That wooden token is not a big deal, so there's no need to fight over it. It's that man's fault for selling fake goods. If they make a fuss, he won't be able to do business. Zhuosheng thought about it and agreed. Fangzhou City's location was special. Normally, almost no one would dare to cause trouble here. Presumably they would be back soon. However, after waiting for a while, the two of them still didn't see anyone. No, let's go and take a look. With that, the two of them hurriedly returned to the street from before. The peddler was nowhere to be seen. Even his stall had been packed up. Chu Liwei had also disappeared. The two of them looked back and forth before they realized that something had really happened. What's going on? Where did the two of them go? Zhuosheng looked anxious. The other vendors are still here. There must be something fishy about that man. Could it be that he took Chuyu away? Luo Yanming pondered for a moment. It doesn't look like it. At that time, Chuyu said that the item was fake and wanted to return it. But he was a celestial physician, how could he be wrong? He didn't think much of it before, but now that he thought about it, there were many suspicious points. Chuyu seemed to have deliberately returned. Then why didn't Chuyu tell us? Zhuosheng was a little annoyed. Could it be that he was afraid that we would know something? If he really encountered any danger, they could be of help with him. Now they didn't even know where he was. Fangzhou City is too big and that man seems to have come prepared. I'm afraid that just the two of us won't be enough. As Luo Yanming spoke, she turned and walked in a certain direction. Hey Yanming, where are you going? Zhuosheng hurriedly followed. Luo Yanming said firmly, I'm going to find the elders on duty in the city. Everything that happens in Fangzhou City is under their control. With their help, we should be able to find Chuyu as soon as possible. On the other side, the people from the academy who were heading to the northern border of the primordial wilderness were finally about to arrive after a long and arduous journey. Elder Bo Yen looked ahead and said in a deep voice, the northern border of the primordial wilderness is right ahead. The environment here is terrible and extremely dangerous. Everyone must be prepared to defend themselves. Behind him, many students responded in unison, yes. Most of the elders had solemn expressions. Affected by this, the overall atmosphere was more oppressive. But even so, many of the students could not hide the excitement and curiosity in their eyes. It could be said that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers, or that they were young and full of vigor. In any case, they were obviously very eager to become stronger. They all hoped that through this experience they could increase their strength, or even meet with some kind of opportunity to soar to the sky. The surroundings quickly quieted down again. But under this seemingly calm surface, there seemed to be an undercurrent surging. Everyone set up a barrier around themselves. Some even held their yuan instruments in their hands as if they were ready to fight at any time. Elder Bo Yen and the other elders looked at each other and nodded. Then, at his command, all the elders attacked at the same time. In the darkness ahead, an extremely complicated Xian formation suddenly appeared. Everyone's heart shook. That was the exit of the transportation formation. As long as they exited from there, they would be at the legendary primordial wilderness. Very quickly, under the joint efforts of all the elders, a crack appeared in the middle of the Xian formation. A blinding white light shone out from within. Elder Bo Yen squinted his eyes and increased his strength. The Xian formation was completely split into two parts, and they slowly retreated to the side. The door of the transportation formation finally opened slowly. Go! Elder Bo Yen moved and took the lead to rush out. The other 10 or so elders followed closely behind. Everyone started to file out. Elder Bo Yen was the first to come out. His feet stepped on the hard ground, finally giving him a sense of security. Elder Bo Yen raised his eyes and looked forward. It was a vast snowfield. The sky was gray and gloomy. Snow fell like goose feathers. Other than that, there was nothing else. Elder Bo Yen was slightly stunned. This is the primordial wilderness north? Behind him, Elder Wenshi followed and was also stunned when he saw this scene. It was their first time here. Although they had heard many rumors, but when they saw it for themselves they still felt extremely shocked. Behind them, more and more people came out from the transportation formation. Will that thing really appear here? Elder when she could not help but mutter softly. Suddenly, his gaze congealed and pointed to the front. What is that? Digression. I haven't had a good rest in this period of time. I couldn't sleep yesterday, so I wrote less this morning. I will continue to update at around 7 p.m. and 12 p.m. I will try my best to write more. Those who don't like to read separately can read together at night. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1323. The cold wind was biting cold, sweeping up the remaining snow. It was a vast expanse of white between heaven and earth. In the distance, on the flat, snowy ground, something suddenly drilled out from below. It was a magical beast that was about the size of an adult's fist. It looked like a fox, but its ears and nose were different. Its mouth was protruding, revealing two sharp fangs that made it look even more ferocious. Because its entire body was snow white, only its face was grayish-brown, it was easy to hide in the snow. That's a 9th-grade magical beast, the gray-faced deer. Although it's small, it's agile and cunning. It often eats the bones of other living beings to survive, so it's hated by many. Who would have thought that the first magical beast they encountered after coming to the northern border of the primeval wilderness would be this one? Elder Bo Yen explained. But Elder when she still did not relax. Of course he knew what kind of magical beast it was, and because of that he was especially surprised. This is a world of ice and snow and there's no one around. How did it survive here? Elder Bo Yen was stunned and then he frowned. What he said was not without reason. This gray-faced deer was not a magical beast that liked bitter cold places, so there was no reason for it to stay here. And this one seemed to be in good spirits. As if it sensed their gazes, the gray-faced deer glanced in their direction and then quickly plunged back into the snow. Snowflakes flew everywhere and it quickly disappeared. From the outside, other than a hole in the snow, it looked no different from other places. Elder Bo Yen and Elder when she looked at each other, and saw the uneasiness in each other's eyes. This gray-faced deer was so active and smart and did not look like it was suffering at all. Obviously it was living a good life here. Then, didn't that mean that there was a lot of food here for it to enjoy? The ground was covered in thick snow and when one stepped on it, it was almost as high as one's thigh. No one knew what was hidden under the layer of snow. Elder Bo Yen felt a little uneasy. Bo Yen, our people are all out, where are we going next? Another elder walked over and asked. Elder Bo Yen turned back to take a look. The remaining students and elders had indeed come out. He thought for a moment, then said, Now we have arrived at the northern region of untainted land. However, this place is extremely vast. No one knows where the heavenly square cauldron will appear. Therefore, in the following period of time, we will act separately. 2 elders formed a team and were responsible for looking after the 60 students. But there was one thing. Everyone had to stay in touch at all times. If there are any problems, retreat immediately. Your life comes first. Understood? Yes. Elder Bo Yen waved his hand. Go. At that moment, countless experts were arriving at the Red Valley Beach outside the northern region of the primordial world. The people who had come were all from the first-rate families and sects of the Divine Ruins world. They were all ambitious and wanted to fight for the heavenly square cauldron that was about to appear here. The northern region of the primeval wasteland, which had been silent for thousands of years, was quietly bustling with activity. The battle was on the verge of breaking out. Outside Fangzhou City, the fierce battle finally came to an end. A well-built man was lying on the ground. The clothes on his chest were already stained red with blood. The snow-white sword pierced through his chest and nailed him to the ground. He panted heavily and struggled to get up, but it was futile. His face quickly turned pale and his aura was dispirited. You. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. His eyes were filled with anger and resentment as he glared at a figure not far in front of him. The ground beneath him was quickly covered in blood. Looked very miserable. Chu Liwei looked at him coldly and slowly walked over. She stepped on the man's chest with one foot, pressing down on his chest for a while. More blood gushed out. At the same time she held the sword hilt with one hand and slowly turned it. Scarlet Heaven sword, which was as light as a feather in her hand, was as heavy as 10,000 kilograms in the eyes of others. With just a light spin, the man's flesh, blood, and bones were almost completely crushed. Ah! The man's expression changed and he let out a hysterical scream. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly as if she was very satisfied with his reaction. Back then Shang Wanwan joined forces with Jiang Yuqing to harm her. Behind the scenes, there was no lack of instigation from this person. Therefore this could be considered as revenge for back then. Chu Luiyue tilted her head to admire his painful struggle before she slowly asked, "What's wrong with you? There's something I don't understand. I have no enmity with you. Even until now I don't know who you are. But why did you plan to kill me a long time ago? Could it be because of that thing in my body?" As Chu Luiyue spoke, she narrowed her eyes dangerously. That water droplet only appeared in her body after she was reborn. At that time she thought that it was something that the original owner of this body had. But if this person had been planning to kill her for the water droplet since a long time ago, then didn't that prove that the water droplet had already been with her in her previous life before she was harmed? But she didn't have this part of her memory. Moreover, if this water droplet really existed at that time, why didn't it do anything until she died? Hearing Chu Luiyue's question, the man's painful groans became much softer. He suddenly laughed sarcastically and spat out a mouthful of blood, but he refused to answer. Chu Luiyue pulled out Scarlet Cloud sword and a line of blood appeared. Ugh! The man frowned in pain. An ice-cold sensation came from his neck. The cold blade of the sword was already pressed tightly against his neck. He didn't doubt that Chu Luiyue would kill him at any time. "Since you value this thing so much, why don't we talk? How much do you know about this thing?" The man simply closed his eyes. Obviously, he had no intention of continuing the conversation with Chu Luiyue. Then a strange totem appeared between his eyebrows. Chu Luiyue was shocked and quickly retreated. Bang! That body suddenly exploded. Something took the opportunity to run away quickly. It wanted to play the same trick as last time. Chu Luiyue's expression turned cold. She raised her hand and waved a transparent flame. That flame quickly set up a barrier around them. Crack! The barrier shattered. But at the same time that aura also weakened a lot. Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth. Last time she let it escape. This time it was absolutely impossible. With a thought, a transparent cauldron appeared in her palm. She gently pushed with her palm, and the heavenly square cauldron flew out quickly. The soul that was escaping quickly seemed to be affected by a huge suction force, and its speed slowed down at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, just as Chu Luiyue thought that the heavenly square cauldron was about to subdue and suppress it, she saw that the soul suddenly burned. Her heart sank. The next moment that soul completely dissipated. It disappeared without a trace. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1324. Playing. Chu Luiyue stabbed Scarlet Heaven sword into the ground. He escaped again. Don't worry. With this soul destroyed, even if he doesn't die, his vitality will be greatly damaged. Taizu advised. You killed him today, so you can consider it as venting your anger. Chu Luiyue calmed herself down and summoned the heavenly square cauldron back. She paused for a moment and said, "Thank you, Taizu. I understand." In fact, it was already very difficult for her to win today. Her opponent's strength was much higher than hers. Unfortunately, he did not have a physical body and could only reside in someone else's body. This greatly affected his strength. Moreover, what was stored in that physical body was not all of his soul. It seems that this person's actions are very cautious. He's been testing me time and time again. He's really patient. Chu Luiyue sneered. But it's not bad if he keeps doing this. If he comes a few more times, I can finish him off bit by bit. Taizu knew that she was angry. No one would be able to tolerate such a thing. Girl, don't worry about that for now. You used up a lot of energy in the battle just now. You should recover first. It won't be too late to think of a way to solve this matter when you go back. Chu Luiyue nodded. She had left Fang Province City for some time. Shuasheng and the others might already be looking for her. Although she had the upper hand just now, she had used up a lot of energy. If they saw her now, it would be even more difficult to explain. Chu Luiyue put away Scarlet Heaven sword, swallowed 2 pills and sat down to meditate. About 15 minutes later, her strength recovered slightly and her face was not so pale. She stood up, thought for a moment and walked to the corpse. She took out a jade screen and poured something out. A transparent liquid flowed out and dripped onto the man's body. His body quickly turned into a pool of blood and quickly seeped into the ground, disappearing without a trace. Nothing could be seen except for the messy bloodstains on the ground. And because the ground was dark brown, if one didn't look carefully, it would be difficult to notice the bloodstains. In the wilderness of the Divine Ruins world, all kinds of battles would occur at any time. A little bloodstain wouldn't attract anyone's attention. However, after some thought, Chu Luiyue waved her hand and used flames to burn away the remaining bloodstains. She took out the wooden tablet. Just as she was about to crush it, she suddenly paused and put it away. Taizu, do you know where the Black Demon sect is? Taizu paused for a moment and gave an affirmative answer. I know the approximate location. But that was 1,000 years ago. Now that so much time has passed, I wonder if they are still in that place. That's easy. Just ask around. Chu Luiyue didn't think much of it. Now that she was also in the Divine Ruins world, it wouldn't be that difficult to find the Black Demon sect. Taizu hesitated. It's fine if you want to go to the Black Demon sect. But with your current strength, I'm afraid. Taizu, don't worry. Before I have absolute confidence, I won't act rashly. Besides, didn't that person say that he's no longer a member of the Black Demon sect? Maybe I can find some clues from other sources in the future. Seeing that Chu Luiyue's thoughts were clear and her emotions were calm, Taizu was relieved. It's good that you know what you're doing. Only then did Chu Luiyue turn around and leave. After a period of time, Chu Luiyue returned to the city alone. As if nothing had happened, she walked towards the place where she had agreed to meet Zhuosheng and the others. Just as she turned the corner and walked onto a street, she suddenly heard a familiar voice in front of her. Chu Yu. She looked over and saw that it was Luo Yanming. Chu Yu, where did you go just now? Luo Yanming quickly rushed over and nervously sized up Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue laughed bitterly and helplessly. It's a long story. Seeing that Chu Luiyue seemed to be very tired, Luo Yanming originally had a lot of questions to ask, but she suppressed them all. Come back with me first. I'll pass the news to the elders and Zhuosheng. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Elders. That's right. After discovering that you were missing, Zhuosheng and I searched for you in the city for a long time, but we couldn't find you. In a hurry, we went to ask the elders for help. Now they're looking for you everywhere. Chu Luiyue looked apologetic. I'm really sorry to have caused you so much trouble. No one else knows about this, right? Well, at present, other than Zhuosheng and me, only the 2 elders on duty know. Originally, we said that if you didn't return before dark, we would send more people to look for you. There were many students from Lingxiao College in Fang State City. As long as the elders gave the order, they would immediately take action. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. If so many people were troubled because of me, I'm even more sorry. Where are the elders now? I'll personally apologize to them. Luo Yanming didn't suspect anything. She brought Chu Luiyue to meet up with Zhuosheng and the others. Luo Yanming originally had a lot of questions, but there were people coming and going on the road, so she didn't say much. She only glanced at Chu Luiyue from time to time. Her eyes were filled with surprise, curiosity, inquiry, and confusion. Chu Luiyue could only pretend not to see it. Fortunately, not long after, they met Zhuosheng and the elders who were anxiously looking for her. When they saw Chu Luiyue return, they were first surprised and glad, but then they were full of doubts. They simply returned to the courtyard where the elders on duty lived. After entering the room, Zhuosheng couldn't help but take the lead and ask, Chu Yu, what's going on? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1325. Everyone in the room looked at Chu Luiyue, obviously waiting for her answer. Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and said, Actually, I lied to you before. The reason why I said that the wooden token was fake was because I wanted to go back and find that person. But after I went back, I found that he had already left. I followed him all the way out of Fangzhou City. Apart from the elders present, Zhuosheng and Luo, you were all shocked. You left the city? Chu Luiyue nodded. At that time I was focused on catching up with him, so I didn't think too much. Facing their bewildered gazes, Chu Liwei explained, I knew him before and there was some unhappiness between the two of us before. After meeting him this time, I wanted to teach him a lesson, but I felt that this was my personal matter and it wasn't good to let you get involved, so I used that reason to lie to you. Only then did Zhuoxing and Luo use expressions ease. So it was an old enemy, no wonder they cared so much. Chu Yu's explanation made sense. After all, although they were friends with him, it was normal for them not to want to involve others in their personal matters. But Chu Yu, it's too dangerous for you to do this. If that man is much stronger than you or if he brought others to ambush you, then you... Luo Yanming's expression was disapproving. That's right. Don't do this next time. The two of us thought that you were... Zhuoxing stopped halfway and almost bit his tongue. Then now that you're back, where's that man? Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows slightly. We had a fight and he ran away, so I came back. Seeing that Chu Liwei was fine, the few of them believed her words and didn't ask any more questions. After a few words of advice, the elder finally decided to let them return to the academy first. After experiencing this, Zhuoxing and Luo Yu didn't have the mood to continue staying here, so they agreed to the elder's suggestion. Chu Liwei naturally had no objections. After resting for a night, Chu Liwei and the other two returned to Lingxiao College the next morning. As for what happened outside the city, no one knew. Everything seemed to have passed peacefully. After returning to the academy, Chu Liwei returned to Mount Jiuheng alone. Rongxie was still not back. Strangely, Dugu Maobao did not appear either. Looking at the empty room, Chu Liwei slowly frowned. According to Dugu Maobao's character, he would definitely not sit back and do nothing after knowing what had happened in Fangzhou City. But he never appeared. This made Chu Liwei suspect that he had already left Lingxiao College. Thinking of the news that the so-called Heavenly Square Cauldron was going to appear in the north region of Untainted Land, Chu Liwei faintly felt that something was going to happen. Thus, after thinking about it, she decided to think of a way to go to the north region of Untainted Land. Although it was very dangerous there, she had several trump cards now and could still protect herself. Moreover, the real Heavenly Square Cauldron was with her. Something really happened to Elder Bo Yan and the others there. Perhaps she could help a little. Of course, she hoped that this would never happen. Thinking was thinking, but actually implementing it was very difficult. Because none of the elders in the academy would agree to let her go there alone. There was a teleportation formation in Lingxiao College that led directly to the north region of Untainted Land. But to activate this teleportation formation, several elders had to work together. It was absolutely impossible to rely on Chu Liu's current strength. Especially since there were people guarding the teleportation formation, Chu Liwei had no hope of sneaking over. After thinking for a long time in the room, Chu Liwei still couldn't think of any useful ideas. In the end, she decided to go to the teleportation formation to take a look. This special teleportation formation was in the Xian Master's area. Chu Liwei first went to visit Elder Huafeng. Seeing Chu Liwei coming over, Elder Huafeng was pleasantly surprised. Kid, why are you free today? He looked at Chu Liwei with shining eyes, full of anticipation. Have you thought it through and want to cultivate Xian formations? Chu Liwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It had been so long, but Elder Huafeng was still thinking about this matter. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat and she swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She nodded with a smile. That's right. Didn't you always say that you wanted me to come over and take a look? These 2 days the academy is on holiday and everyone has gone out. I have nothing to do, so I wanted to come and ask you for advice. This time, Elder Huafeng was really overjoyed. Really? Chu Liwei blinked. Of course. Otherwise, why else would I look for you? Don't you think so? Elder Huafeng stroked his beard and chuckled. Could it be that this kid had found his conscience? Or was it because of the matter of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix that he wanted to confirm if he had kept it a secret? Thinking of this, Elder Huafeng gave Chu Liwei a look. Don't worry. This old man will definitely do what he promised. Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment before she realized what he was talking about. She couldn't help but laugh. Elder Huafeng, you misunderstood. I really came here today to ask you for advice. Recently, I have a Xian formation that I haven't been able to crack. I wonder if you can give me some pointers. Hearing her words, Elder Huafeng was even happier. Good. Since you're here today, I'll give you some pointers. If he performed well, this kid might agree to cultivate with him. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and quickly constructed a level 9 Xian formation. This is it. Take a look. A level 9 Xian formation was naturally a piece of cake for Elder Huafeng. He quickly pointed out a few small mistakes in the Xian formation constructed by Chu Luiyue. But in his heart he admired Chu Luiyue even more. To be able to construct a level 9 Xian formation so easily, he was only 16 years old. Chu Yu, with your talent, it's a pity that you're not a Xian master. Elder Huafeng sighed. Chu Luiyue seemed to have suddenly thought of something and asked tentatively. Elder Huafeng, I heard that you have been in charge of maintaining the Xian formation that leads to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land all these years? Digression. Continue after eating. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1326. She looked at Elder Huafeng sincerely. That must be because Elder Huafeng is the most powerful, right? Elder Huafeng stroked his beard proudly. Hehe, you flatter me. There are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the academy. There are many powerful elders. To be precise, one person can't protect the Xian formation. Several elders have to work together. This old man is just one of them. It's not worth mentioning. Although he said that, anyone who saw his beaming with joy knew that Chu Luiyue's words had hit the nail on the head. This was because the Xian formation was very special. Those who could be sent to protect the Xian formation had to be strong and trustworthy. There were many elders in the academy and the competition was intense. It was normal for Elder Huafeng to be proud of it. Chu Luiyue's eyes revealed a trace of reverence. I heard that it was personally built by the first dean. In the entire Divine Ruins world, there is only one teleportation array that leads directly to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land. It would be great if I had the chance to see it with my own eyes. As she spoke, a look of regret flashed across her face. Elder Huafeng knew that she had originally wanted to go, but because of a temporary problem with her body, she couldn't make the trip. After all, she was still a youth, so it was inevitable that it would be a pity. Actually, this isn't a big deal. Look, after so many years, isn't this the first time the Xian formation has been reactivated? Many elders who have stayed in the academy for over 100 years haven't been able to experience it. Such an opportunity is hard to come by. Chu, you don't take it to heart. As Elder Huafeng spoke, he winked at Chu Luiyue. Why don't you consider learning Xian formations from me? Chu Luiyue laughed as if she was joking. Then if I acknowledge you as my master, can you take me to see the teleportation array with your own eyes? Elder Huafeng only thought that she was throwing a tantrum and patted his chest. What's so difficult about that? When you break through to a certain extent, you might even be able to, swish. The sound of something tearing through the air sounded. Elder Huafeng's voice stopped abruptly as he quickly raised his head. Chu Luiyue also turned around. It was an elder who looked somewhat familiar. Huafeng. That elder's speed was extremely fast, arriving in front of the two in the blink of an eye. His face was rosy and his eyes were shining. He looked very excited. Huafeng. In the north of the primordial wilderness. Just as he was about to say something, he turned his gaze and saw Chu Luiyue beside him. He immediately stopped. Chu Luiyue calmly raised his eyebrows. Longze, what made you so happy? Elder Huafeng asked with a smile. Elder Longze wanted to say something but stopped. Chu Luiyue immediately retreated tactfully. Elders, please take your time to chat. This student will take his leave first. Elder Huafeng originally didn't mind Chu Luiyue staying here, but seeing Longze's expression, it seemed that this matter was important, so he didn't stop him. However, he was also worried that Chu Luiyue would leave just like that. He didn't know when he would come again. Chu, you don't go back yet. Go over there and wait. When Longze's matters are settled, we'll continue to talk about your matters. Chu Luiyue smiled and nodded. With that, she obediently left. Only when Chu Luiyue's figure completely disappeared from his sight did Elder Huafeng look at Elder Longze. Speak. What's the matter? Why are you so mysterious? Elder Longze took a deep breath, but he still couldn't hide his excitement. He clenched his fists and said excitedly, There's news from the north of the primordial wilderness. The heavenly square cauldron has appeared. Elder Huafeng was shocked and hurriedly asked, Really? Bo Yan's news is naturally true. I was guarding the teleportation formation just now. As soon as I received the news, I immediately came to inform you. Elder Huafeng was also in high spirits as he paced back and forth. That's great. I was a little worried previously, but I didn't expect them to encounter the heavenly square cauldron so quickly. By the way, what else did Bo Yen say? Elder Longze nodded. He said that the situation there is more tense and needs us to send more people over to support him. That's why I rushed over to discuss with you and see how we should decide on the candidates. We still need to send more people. Elder Huafeng was stunned when he heard this. There are already quite a few people from our academy who went, right? More than 30 elders and more than 300 students. Even when compared to those aristocratic families and clans, they would definitely have an advantage. That's right. I thought it was a little strange at first, but that was indeed Bo Yan's news. And think about it, that's the Heavenly Square Cauldron. One of the 10 great sacred artifacts of the Divine Ruins world. There are many parties competing for it and the competition is intense. Even if our academy isn't going to snatch that thing, we still have to protect ourselves, right? Elder Huafeng pondered for a moment. Did Bo Yan say how many people are needed? He didn't say the details, but I estimate that at least 7 or 8 of the elders in the academy will go, right? This number sounded small, but in fact it was already a lot if they added up the ones who had already gone. After all, there were only 100 elders in the entire academy, and most of them had to stay here to guard. Elder Huafeng nodded. We can still pick out 7 or 8 people. How about this? You go back and continue guarding the teleportation formation. I'll go find someone now. All right. Elder Longze left very quickly. Elder Huafeng thought about it for a moment and quickly drew up a list of names. His status in the academy wasn't low, so it wasn't a problem for him to mobilize a few elders. Right at this moment, Chu Luiyue, who saw Elder Longze leave, finally walked back. When Elder Huafeng saw her, he remembered that he wanted to take her in as a disciple. However, now was obviously not a good time to continue talking about this. Thus, he said rather embarrassedly, Chuyu, there are some things that I have to deal with at the last minute. I'm afraid the matter of you becoming my disciple will have to be delayed. Chu Luiyue had already expected this. From Elder Longze's appearance just now, something must have happened in the northern region of the primordial world. She smiled and said, You can continue. You go ahead, I'm fine here. Elder Huafeng looked at her with relief. Although this kid often got into trouble, he still generally knew what was important and what was not. Chu Luiyue saw that he was about to leave and her eyes moved slightly. Elder Huafeng, is there something going on in the northern region of the primordial world? Elder Huafeng thought for a moment. He probably wouldn't be able to hide this matter in the future, so he nodded. I have to choose a few more elders. As for why, he didn't say. However, Chu Luiyue immediately sensed that this was the crux of the problem. He had already gone so many times before, so why did he have to go again now? Her brows furrowed imperceptibly as she asked tentatively, What are you talking about? This student has a presumptuous request. I wonder if you can agree? Speak. Elder Huafeng waved his hand. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment. This time, can you bring me along? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1327. What did you say? Elder Huafeng asked subconsciously. Chu Luiyue seemed to have mustered up his courage as he looked at him nervously and expectantly. If you don't mind, this student would like to request to go to the northern border of the Great Desolate Land with the elders. No. Elder Huafeng's first reaction was to refuse. Chu was going to? Wasn't this a joke? This student has already passed the examination. The past is the past, now is the present. Elder Huafeng's attitude was firm. How can this be the same? At the beginning, it was the academy's large group that went together. If Chuyu followed at that time, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now it was Bo Yen who sent a message saying that he needed support. It was fine if he chose a few elders, but what was going on with Chuyu? Chu Luiyue lowered his head slightly. Elder Huafeng stood there and could see the young man's slightly trembling eyelashes and tightly pursed lips. Anyone who saw it could sense the disappointment and regret in his heart. Elder Huafeng was instantly conflicted. This child clearly didn't say much, but why did it seem like he had let him down? Logically speaking, he couldn't let Chuyu follow him. Elder Huafeng rubbed his temples and advised, Chuyu, you are still young. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Why do you have to stare at this time? Isn't that right? Chu Liwei raised his head and looked at him. But didn't you say just now that some elders have stayed in the academy for over 100 years and haven't been able to take a look at the Xian formation? Isn't this student even more hopeless? Who told you to talk too much? Elder Huafeng wished he could take back what he had said just now. This is just an example. It can't represent all of them. The students who passed the examination before other than me should have all gone. Chu Liwei sighed with a lonely expression. He forced a smile, but it was uglier than crying. Forget it, Elder, you're right. I shouldn't limit my vision to what's in front of me. I couldn't go last time and I can't go this time, but there might still be a chance in the future. Elder Huafeng's eyelids twitched. Why did this sound so awkward? He really didn't consider letting Chu Yu go. After all, it was a bit strange for a few elders to bring along a student. However, Chu Yu was indeed the only one who did not manage to follow them in time. Actually, which student in the academy didn't want to go? Although the great desolate northern region was a famous danger zone in the Divine Ruins world, it was still much safer with so many people moving together. Even if he couldn't obtain a great opportunity, he could still make use of the opportunity to increase his strength. Chu Yu couldn't go, so it was understandable that he was upset. Elder Huafeng walked forward. There's no room for discussion. Just go back. Chu Liwei sighed. Looks like this student really does not have such luck. In the future, I will just obediently stay in Jiuheng Mountain and refine pills. Elder Huafeng's footsteps paused as he gritted his teeth in anger. He turned around and quickly walked over to Chu Liwei. He raised his hand and hit her on the head. Stinking brat, how dare you threaten this old man? Ouch. It hurts. Elder. It hurts. Chu Liwei hurriedly covered her head and took a step back. What hurts? This old man didn't even use any strength. Elder Huafeng was so angry that he wanted to press her down and beat her up. Just as he raised his hand, he saw Chu Liwei looking at him pitifully. A pair of black jade-like eyes seemed to be flowing with light as bright as stars. Elder Huafeng paused and suddenly couldn't hit her anymore. Gaze. How familiar. Elder. Chu Liwei blinked and called out to him. She then smiled and her eyes turned into crescents. Elder, please agree to my request this time. I promise I won't be a burden. Not to mention anything else, students always have the ability to protect themselves. Don't forget, her contracted magical beast is one of the two ancient divine beasts, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Elder Huafeng looked at her, and his expression suddenly became complicated. His hand trembled slightly and he finally withdrew it, turned around and left. Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment and was a little confused. What does this mean? Hurry up and follow me. Elder Huafeng, who had walked a distance away, turned around and glanced at her. What are you doing there? Chu Liwei laughed in surprise. Coming. Just like that, Elder Huafeng brought Chu Liwei to invite a few elders one after another. At first he didn't say the specific reason. He only said that there was a problem in the northern region of the primordial land, and Elder Bo Yen said that he wanted to send more people. The elders didn't doubt him and agreed one after another. After quickly dealing with the matters at hand, they followed Elder Huafeng to the place where the teleportation array was located. Of course, Chu Liwei also followed along. Although the elders felt that it was strange, they didn't ask any questions. This special teleportation formation wasn't hidden, but because there were several layers of barriers outside and the range was quite large, it was very difficult to get close to it. Even if they knew that it was here, ordinary people wouldn't even be able to get close to it, let alone enter. Chu Liu's gaze swept across the layers of barriers, and she was secretly amazed. Lingshao College was indeed very attentive to this Xian formation. Huafeng, you're here. Elder Long Zhe, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately came forward. When he saw Chu Liwei, he couldn't help but be stunned and looked at Elder Huafeng. Huafeng, why did this child follow us? Elder Huafeng coughed. Oh, he's going with us. As soon as he finished speaking, the scene fell into dead silence. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1328. Huafeng. Elder Long Zhe was in disbelief. Didn't he say it clearly just now? Under such circumstances, It was enough for a few elders to go. How could there be another student? It would be fine if it was someone like Rong Xiao, but Chuyu had only been in the academy for a few months. How could he go? Are you kidding? Elder Huafeng also felt very embarrassed. But since he had already said it, how could he go back on his word? Moreover, he was quite open-minded about this matter. On one hand, Chuyu was indeed qualified to go before, but he didn't make it in time. On the other hand, his contracted divine beast was too powerful, so it shouldn't be a burden. Perhaps it could even help at a critical moment. He still clearly remembered the scene of all the beasts kneeling that night. Other than that, there was one more thing. It seemed very difficult for him to refuse Chuyu's request. Anyway, he didn't know why, but he liked this child very much and doted on him. Even though he knew that this matter would be opposed by the others, he still did it. It was because he didn't want to see the sadness and grievance in those eyes. Even he himself couldn't tell what kind of feeling it was. He had never treated his disciple so well before. Cough. Actually, Chuyu should have gone before, but on the day of departure, there was a temporary problem with his body, so he missed it. Now that his body has recovered, he wants to go with us to take a look. I thought about it and agreed. At this point, Elder Huafeng hurriedly added. But don't worry, this child is very sensible. He won't cause us any trouble. The elders remained silent with solemn expressions. It was obvious that they still didn't agree. Elder Huafeng patted Chu Liuyue's shoulder. Don't worry, if anything really happens, I, Huafeng, will bear the responsibility. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat and she couldn't help but turn to look at him. His expression was extremely firm, as if he had already made up his mind to protect her to the end. There seemed to be something surging between Chu Liuyue's chest and abdomen. She lowered her eyes to hide the ripples in her eyes. Huafeng, this matter is not child's play. Have you thought it through? Elder Longzhe asked in a deep voice. Elder Huafeng nodded again. Longzhe, I know what to do. The two of them looked at each other and remained silent for a while. It was a silent confrontation. Finally, Elder Longzhe was the first to shift his gaze away. His sharp gaze swept over Chu Liyue. Kid, you do have some skills. Since Huafeng wants to protect you this time, you can go with him. But if anything goes wrong, you have to bear the consequences yourself. What kind of place was the northern region of the untainted land? The people in front were going together, so it was safer. But now that they were going to provide support, no one could guarantee that nothing would happen to them. Chu Yu standing out too much among these few elders. Chu Liyue said seriously, this student understands. Elder Longzhe frowned. He glanced at Elder Huafeng and shook his head helplessly. Fine, I'll just let them wander around on their own and they'll naturally know the dangers. Having obtained permission, Chu Liyue was finally able to step forward and clearly see the entire teleportation array. It was just a circular teleportation array made of bronze, thick and simple. The totem of Lingshao College was engraved in the middle. It wasn't large in scale, but it was very meticulously made. Standing at the edge, Chu Liyue could faintly sense the astonishing pressure coming from above. Elder Longzhe and the others stood around the teleportation array and took out their green jade tokens. Several rays of light flew out from the green jade tokens floating in the air and gathered above the teleportation array. Bright but not dazzling streams of light instantly flew out from the surroundings and quickly spread out the entire Shen array. A holy and heavy aura seeped out from it. Chu Liyue unconsciously straightened her back and stared at the teleportation array. At this moment she was certain that the level of this teleportation array was extremely high, and it was something she had never seen before in her life. Elder Huafeng and the others also had solemn expressions as they walked into the teleportation array one after another. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and followed. As the power above continued to accumulate, the teleportation array finally opened slowly. Swish! With a flash of light, the figures of the few people instantly disappeared from the spot. Elder Longzhe looked at the empty teleportation array and shook his head. Now he could only hope that everything would go smoothly. After entering the teleportation array, the surrounding spatial turbulence was quickly isolated. Everything around them was stable, but it was a little too quiet. Chu Liyue naturally knew that it was because she was beside her, so she obediently stood at the side, lowering her eyes and trying her best to reduce her presence. After a moment, an elder finally spoke. Huafeng, you refused to tell us before, but now you should tell us why you're going this time, right? As soon as he finished speaking, the others all looked at Hua Feng. Even Chu Luiyue pricked up her ears. She was also very curious about what Elder Longza had said to Elder Hua Feng before. Elder Hua Feng nodded. I didn't explain it to you clearly before because it's a serious matter. His voice was a lot deeper and it was completely unlike his usual lively and cordial tone. This caused the few people present to feel a little nervous. Then they heard Elder Hua Feng explain. The reason why Bo Yen wants us to go this time is because the Heavenly Square Cauldron has already appeared in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land. Chu Luiyue suddenly raised her eyes. A look of shock flashed across her eyes. Fortunately, at this time, everyone's attention was attracted by Elder Hua Feng's words, and no one saw the change in her expression. Really? An elder was the first to exclaim in surprise. It appeared so soon? That Bo Yen wants us to go, which means that they are fighting for the Heavenly Square Cauldron and they have a chance? Elder Hua Feng shook his head. We can't be sure yet, but what we can be sure of is that the northern part of the Great Desolate Land is definitely in chaos. After we reach the place, I'm afraid there will be another fierce battle, and there might be more than one. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know that there would be many people going. It would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens if they wanted to be the first to snatch back the Heavenly Square Cauldron. However, this news still made the few elders excited. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, they would fight to the end. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment and finally couldn't help but ask, Elder Hua Feng, this news? Was it really sent back by Elder Bo Yen? Digression. I'm going to sleep tomorrow at noon and at night. Now that the manuscript has been sent out, I'll send out as much as I can write tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1329. This is natural. When Bo Yen and the others left, they specially left behind a communication device for convenience. Once they encounter any situation, they can quickly send back news. Long Zhe and the others have been taking turns to guard the teleportation formation during this period of time, so they definitely won't make a mistake. Elder Hua Feng looked at Chu Luiyue strangely. Why are you suddenly asking this? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. It's nothing. The student just felt that the northern region of the Great Desolate Land is so far away from the academy, so it should be very inconvenient to send messages back and forth. Elder Hua Feng laughed out loud. Kid, this is of course an inconceivable thing to you now. But if you can follow this old man to cultivate Xian formations, breaking through to become a top expert in the future will be a piece of cake. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Elder Hua Feng was really persistent about this matter. He really didn't know what kind of expression he would have if he knew that he had already broken through to the Xian King realm. When the elders beside him heard this, they all revealed expressions of understanding. So this was Hua Feng's plan. They had indeed heard some things about Chu Yu before. Other than being a celestial physician, he was also quite talented in Xian master and martial arts. This was already a publicly acknowledged fact among the elders. From this, it could be seen that Hua Feng was really concerned about this child. The Heavenly Square Cauldron is one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. There will definitely be many people going to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land to fight for it. I'm afraid there will be a fierce battle in the future. An elder said in a deep voice. Our primary goal is not the Heavenly Square Cauldron, but if there is such an opportunity, we naturally can't miss it. That's right. Such an opportunity is hard to come by, so we must grasp it well. I just don't know. What's the situation over there? I heard that there are many first-rate families and sects going this time, and a few of them are our old enemies. The northern region of the Great Desolate Land is an extremely vicious place. Someone might take the opportunity to attack, so we must be careful. I remember that the Golden Wing sect is there. At this point, the elders looked at Chu Luiyue in tacit understanding. Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched slightly. Elder Hua Feng said, It doesn't matter if they go. The Heavenly Square Cauldron is right in front of them. Do you think they would care about their past conflicts with us? Previously, that disciple of his brought people to cause a ruckus at our academy's entrance. It's already good enough that we didn't pursue the matter. After saying that, he couldn't help but lower his voice and say to Chu Luiyue, Kid, you have to follow us closely from now on. Don't mess around on your own, okay? Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. It was a long journey from Lingxiao College to the northern region of Untainted Land. Even if there was a teleportation formation that could bring them there directly, it would still take a long time. Chu Luyue spent most of his time silently cultivating. Since she couldn't devour origin power here, she began to study profound formations and prescriptions. Ever since she broke through to the Xian King Master level, she felt that the complicated Xian formations that appeared in her mind were much simpler. She simulated those Xian formations in her mind over and over again, and very quickly she became proficient in them. As for the celestial physician, although she had already memorized all the prescriptions in the physician's medicine manual, she had never had the chance to try it out, so she had never been able to break through. She could only wait until she was free to study it properly. I didn't expect that I would be able to see this teleportation formation open in my lifetime. After a long time, the elders gradually relaxed when they saw that Chu Luyue was sensible and obedient. An elder sighed and said, "This was personally built by the first dean back then. At that time, almost no one in the entire Divine Ruins could compare to him. It's a pity that no one inherited his legacy." Hearing this, Chu Luyue, who was silently memorizing the Xian formation, opened his eyes curiously. "Elder, why is that so?" The first principal of the Spirit Firmament Academy, it was easy to imagine what kind of person he was back then. How could such a person not find a disciple to accept his legacy? Wasn't that too much of a pity? Elder Huafeng smiled helplessly and explained, "I heard that back then that person was extremely picky. Although he established Lingxiao College and took in many students, he was not satisfied with any of them, so he handed them all over to the other elders. Until he died." As he spoke, Elder Huafeng's face revealed a regretful expression. The first dean was a world-shaking genius. He was a martial artist, a Xian master, a celestial physician, and a refiner. He was proficient in everything. And all of them were top-notch. It was normal for such a person to have high standards. If a student could inherit everything from him back then, the scene today would be very different. Back then, because he left in a hurry, many precious manuals were not preserved. His ultimate techniques have become nothing but empty air. Chu Luyue nodded in understanding. An elder beside her sighed softly and said, "Actually, there were many people who followed the dean back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to establish Lingxiao College. At that time, there was no lack of geniuses among the students recruited by Lingxiao College. If the dean was willing to teach them personally, they might have become peerless experts. But that person's temperament was too stubborn. No was no. There was no room for compromise. There were thousands of people who wanted to cultivate with him, but unfortunately he was unwilling. No one could do anything about it." Elder Huafeng shook his head. "Although it's a pity sometimes, we have to pay attention to the fate of master and disciple. If he forced himself to accept a disciple that he didn't like, it wouldn't be good for either side. Back then the dean was such a carefree person. There was no need for him to do something that he didn't like. Many people felt that it was an extremely pity that the first dean didn't leave behind his inheritance, but Elder Huafeng understood very well. Wasn't Wanjing like this? All these years, if he didn't like anyone, he wouldn't let go and wouldn't accept a single one. It wasn't a problem for him to give lessons to the students, and it was also fine for him to occasionally give them pointers. However, if he were to teach everything he had learned to one person, that wouldn't do, unless it was someone who could catch his eye. A few years ago one finally appeared, but in the end he was intercepted. Now that he had met Chuyu, he naturally wouldn't let go. Thinking of this, Elder Huafeng suddenly felt a little guilty. If Wanjing knew that he was still thinking about Chuyu, then it would really be. That elder nodded. "You're right, but back then the first dean was especially talented in Xian masters. It's really a pity that so many powerful Xian formations have disappeared. If only I had the chance to see it with my own eyes. We're already very lucky to be able to restart this Xian formation. Don't think too much about anything else." After saying that, the elders all fell into silence at the same time. Chu Liyue also quieted down and waited silently. Time slowly passed. Finally, after a long period of suffering, the group was about to arrive at the northern border of the primordial world. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1330. We're almost there. As Elder Hua Feng spoke, his expression became much more solemn. The other elders also stood together, looked at each other and then attacked together. A bright Xian formation suddenly appeared in the darkness ahead. Soon the Xian formation split open from the middle and slowly opened to both sides. Bright white light shone in from the outside. Let's go. With Elder Hua Feng's order, he took the lead and rushed out. Chu Liyue and the other elders followed closely behind. Cold. Very cold. This was the first feeling Chu Liyue had after coming out of the teleportation formation. Looking ahead, there was a vast expanse of white snow. Other than that, there was nothing else. The sky was dark as if it had just finished university. Dumpling, who was in his dantian, moved and a warm aura instantly surged throughout his body. Chu Liyue felt much better this time. Why is this place so cold? Behind him, an elder couldn't help but shiver. As he spoke, he hurriedly set up a barrier around himself. I've long heard that the environment in the northern region of the Great Desolate Land is harsh, but I didn't expect it to be so terrifying. They were all god-level experts, so ordinary cold and heat had no effect on them. For them to have such a big reaction, it could be seen that this place was unimaginably cold. Chuyu, are you all right? Another elder couldn't help but ask when he saw that Chu Liyue's expression was normal. Chu Liyue blinked and smiled. Thank you for your concern, elder. My contracted beast is a red-tailed phoenix, so I'm fine. No wonder. Cultivators below the god level probably wouldn't be able to stay here for long. At first they were worried because they had brought Chuyu here, but now it seemed that this child didn't need them to worry. This matter changed the elders' impression of Chu Liyue, and they looked at her with much gentler expressions. Elder Hua Feng silently looked at Chu Liyue. Red-tailed phoenix. That's right, she broke through from the red-tailed phoenix in the first place. Chu Liyue's expression remained the same. An elder looked around and couldn't help but ask, where are Bo Yen and the others? This place was covered in snow, so it would be difficult to quickly find them. Elder Hua Feng took out his green jade token. 2 light spots were quietly flickering on it. One of them was his, and the other was naturally Elder Bo Yan's. He looked for a while and finally determined the direction to the right. It should be over there. However, it seems that there is still some distance. Even if we rush there at full speed, it will take us several hours. As he spoke, he looked up at the sky. It's just that the snow is so deep. I'm afraid that my speed will be reduced by more than half. There's no other way. Flying in the air in this place was simply a moving target. We don't know who's here, so it's best to be careful. Even if he was much slower, he could not casually play with his own life. Elder Hua Feng nodded. Let's go. Just like that, the few of them slowly walked through the snow. With every step he took, a deep snow pit would appear behind him. After walking for a while, Chu Liyue's body started to heat up. She gradually frowned, feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't like she had never walked in the snow before, so she knew that it was very tiring. But this time it seemed to be a little too much. It was as if there was something below that was sticking to her feet, and every step she took was exceptionally strenuous. She couldn't help but look down, but she couldn't see anything. Other than the crystal-clear snow, there was nothing else. She hesitated for a moment before temporarily suppressing her thoughts. After a period of time, the other elders were clearly unable to take it anymore. Is there something strange about this place? Why is it so strenuous to walk in the snow? I think there's something wrong with this too. Logically speaking, we are all god-level experts. We've only walked here for an hour, so how could we consume so much energy? Hua Feng, what do you think? Elder Hua Feng, who was walking at the front, stopped and let out a long sigh. You're right. There's something fishy about this place. The elders stopped in their tracks. Chu Liyue also stood still. The elders looked at her and realized that Chu Liyue had been walking with them for so long, but she hadn't left them behind. Furthermore, from the looks of it, she didn't seem to be affected much. They couldn't help but be surprised. Did we really underestimate this kid's strength? In fact, the reason why Chu Liyue was able to walk for so long and still maintain a relatively relaxed state was partly because of Dumpling and partly because, after De Bao's training, her physical combat strength was indeed far higher than what she displayed. She looked at her feet again. Suddenly she heard a rustling sound. She turned her head to look. A gray-faced deer crawled out of the snow and stuck its head out to look around. As if sensing her gaze, the gray-faced deer turned its head and met Chu Liyue's eyes. It immediately retracted its head vigilantly. Chu Luiyue frowned. She felt that something was wrong. Could there be something wrong under the snow? One of the elders asked curiously. I think so too, but the snow is so thick, how are we going to check? We can't dig 3 feet into the ground, right? Elder Huafeng shrugged helplessly. The elders looked at each other. Even if there was really something wrong with the ground, it would be impossible for them to solve it quickly with the strength of the few of them. Forget it, let's not care about this. Let's find Bo Yen and the others first and meet up with them. Another elder suggested. Chu Luiyue looked around and suddenly asked, Elder, didn't Elder Bo Yen say that the heavenly square cauldron has appeared here? Why is there no movement at all? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1331. Chu Luiyue's words stunned the elders and they subconsciously looked around. Between the heavens and the earth, there was only white snow and it was silent. Seemed something was wrong. Chu Yu's words make sense. The heavenly square cauldron is such a noble item. If it appeared, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. But now, it seems like nothing happened here. Could it have appeared elsewhere and didn't affect this place? That's why it looks like this. The elders discussed in low voices. Elder Huafeng frowned. That's unlikely. Bo Yen sent a message saying that the heavenly square cauldron has appeared, so they must have seen it. Even if they aren't beside us, they shouldn't be too far away. And now they are not far from us. If they saw it, then we should be able to see it too. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent. At this moment they began to doubt the authenticity of this matter. No matter what, Bo Yen is nearby, so it should be correct. We might not be able to find out the truth even if we think about it. Why don't we meet them first? This suggestion received everyone's approval. Thus, after a little rest, they set off again. Chu Yu, let's go. Elder Huafeng took 2 steps and saw that Chu Luiyue didn't follow, so he shouted again. Coming. Chu Luiyue responded and followed. However, she couldn't help but turn back and take another look, frowning slightly. She kept feeling that something wasn't right. The smell of blood on that gray-faced deer is too strong. Dumpling's voice suddenly entered her ears. Chu Luiyue was shocked at first, but then she suddenly came back to her senses. That's right. This is the feeling. However, because it was a world of ice and snow, the smell of blood was also covered up. However, Dumpling was already a crimson gold heavenly phoenix, so her perception of such things was naturally much stronger than hers. If I haven't guessed it, it should have just been in a battle and... Dumpling's voice paused. It's very full. Chu Luiyue shuddered inexplicably. Although she had never seen a gray-faced deer with her own eyes before, she had a certain understanding of them. The so-called eating was in fact gnawing on bones. Judging from the strong smell of blood on its body, it was very likely that it had just died not long ago. There were very few people in this place. Even for magical beasts, if their level was not high enough and they were not strong enough, they would only die here. Then, that gray-faced musk deer, what exactly? Chu Luiyue knitted her brows tightly. Recently, many people had come to the northern region of the primordial wilderness. Ignoring the others for the time being, the Spirit Firmament Academy had sent over 300 people. They should have passed by here as well. If something had really happened, a heavy snowfall would be enough to bury all traces. A heavy shadow loomed over his heart. After walking for a while, each of them had exhausted a lot of their physical strength. Even Elder Huafeng's lips began to turn pale. He glanced at the green jade token in his hand and his expression suddenly changed. What's wrong? The other elders saw that his expression was not right and immediately asked worriedly. Elder Huafeng closed his eyes and carefully looked at the green jade token. 2 dots of light were close to each other. Logically speaking, they should have met Bo Yen and the others by now. But as far as the eye could see, there was still no one. When the elders saw the 2 dots of light that had almost gathered together on the green jade token, they were stunned for a moment before their expressions changed. What's going on? Where are they? Could it be that there's a problem with the green jade token? Elder Huafeng said slowly, his voice dry. The aura in this green jade token was deliberately left behind by Bo Yen before he left. It can't be wrong. Now that they had clearly arrived, but they did not see anyone, they could not help but be suspicious. When the few of them heard this, they also quieted down and looked at each other. Elder Huafeng, what is this? At this moment, Chu Liyue's voice came from the side. The few of them raised their heads and saw that Chu Liyue had walked a distance away. At this moment he was holding something in his hand. Elder Huafeng took a closer look and immediately said, "Quick, let me see." As he spoke, he did not care about Chu Liyue and simply walked forward himself. Chu Liyue handed the item over. It was a green jade token. The moment Elder Huafeng saw it, he immediately confirmed his guess. This is Bo Yan's thing. Why is it here? He hurriedly looked at Chu Liyue and asked anxiously, "Chu Yu, where did you find it?" Chu Liyue pointed. "It's where the student was standing just now. Originally, I just wanted to look around, but I suddenly felt as if I had stepped on something. I picked it up and saw this." Elder Huafeng frowned and held the green jade token tightly in his hand. No wonder it always showed that Bo Yan and the others were here. So it was only this green jade token that was left here. But this was even more worrisome. Because this token was a symbol of identity, the elders and students of Lingshao College would carefully keep it. If nothing had happened, this thing would not have appeared here for no reason. The other elders also realized this point and their expressions changed. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from the side. Chu Liyue turned around. This sound came from the snow not far behind her. Just when she thought it was the gray-faced deer and other magical beasts, the same sound came from other directions. Soon the few of them were completely surrounded by this strange sound. Swish! Several faint blue lights suddenly flew out from under the snow. They intertwined in mid-air. A gigantic Shen formation cage instantly trapped the few of them. Digression. It was still updated at 7 o'clock and 12 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1332. Everything happened too suddenly. By the time they reacted, they were already trapped in the Shen formation. The entire Shen formation was in a semicircle, trapping them in the middle. It flickered with a faint blue light, causing one to shudder. What is this? An elder couldn't help but mutter softly before quickly looking around. Someone is lying in ambush here? Why didn't we notice it before? This Shen formation was set up in advance and placed here. Elder Huafeng said in a deep voice. It should have been automatically triggered after we walked over. The construction and activation of any Shen formation required time and energy. The higher the level of the Shen formation, the more so. The Shen formation that trapped them here appeared so quickly. It was obvious that it had been prepared beforehand. Who would set up such a trap in this place? Among these elders, only Elder Huafeng was a mystic cultivator. The rest were all martial artists. So at this moment, everyone subconsciously looked at him. The snowy plains were vast and endless. Even if someone really wanted to kill them, why did they have to choose such a place? What if they didn't come here? Wouldn't they have prepared for nothing? Elder Huafeng gripped the green jade token in his hand tightly. It seems like Bo Yan's item was deliberately hidden here to lure us here. As soon as these words were spoken, the elders immediately came to a realization, but they also became even more worried. If that was the case, didn't it mean that the current situation of Elder Bo Yan and the others was also very worrying? Let's put everything else aside for now. Let's think of a way to leave this place first. Elder Huafeng raised his head slightly and looked at the Shen formation above his head. Then he slowly frowned. This caused the few people who had placed all their hopes on him to be filled with apprehension. After a long while, an elder asked tentatively in a low voice, "What's the matter? Huafeng, is there a way to break this Shen formation?" Elder Huafeng said in a deep voice, "This is the attack of a great grandmaster." What? Hearing this, the expressions of the few people changed. Chu Liyue also narrowed her eyes slightly. Above level 9 Shen Masters was Shen King Masters. Above that was Great Shen King Masters. According to her understanding, Elder Huafeng was an expert of this level. As for the Great Grandmaster, it was an even more terrifying existence. In the entire Lingshao College, the number of mystic cultivators who had reached this level in the past 10,000 years could be counted on 2 hands. One could imagine how difficult it would be to solve this Shen formation. Even someone like Elder Huafeng, who was one of the top figures in the academy, would find it extremely difficult to deal with it. Great Grandmaster. Doesn't that mean we can't get out? An elder murmured absent-mindedly. Huafeng, are you sure you can escape from here? This was undoubtedly the question they were most concerned about. Elder Huafeng closed his eyes with a solemn expression. I don't know either. Aren't you only one step away from breaking through to the martial Grandmaster realm? Another elder held on to his last glimmer of hope and asked cautiously, it should be possible to unlock it, right? Elder Huafeng smiled bitterly. A step is still a step. Moreover, how is this a step? It's clearly a natural moat. He had been a great Shen King master for many years, so he knew how difficult it was to take this step. Compared to other great Shen King masters, he might be stronger, but there was still a world of difference between him and a great grandmaster. How could that chasm be filled so easily? Moreover, even if I can unlock it in the end, it will depend on how much time it will take. A few days is fine, but what about a month? What about 3 months? They couldn't keep waiting here. There was a suffocating silence. Forget it, I'll give it a try first. Elder Huafeng gritted his teeth. If it really doesn't work, let's see if we can use other methods to force our way out. After saying that, he held his breath and focused on studying the Xian formation. The others didn't dare to disturb him and waited quietly at the side. Chu Liyue also raised her eyes and carefully sized up the Xian formation. For some reason she felt that this Xian formation was somewhat familiar. She was sure that she had never seen this Xian formation before. Just as Elder Huafeng had said, this Xian formation was created by a great grandmaster. It was the most complicated and difficult Xian formation that Chu Liyue had ever seen. This made the sense of familiarity that welled up in her heart even more strange. Chu Liyue's expression was calm, but her mind was spinning rapidly. Just where did this sense of familiarity come from? Soon heavy snow fell from the sky. The cold wind was bone-piercing. It was easier to feel the cold if one stayed where they were. The cold air seemed to be able to penetrate the skin and directly pierce into the bones. It was like steel needles, dense, causing one to feel extremely uncomfortable. Fortunately, Tu Liyue had dumplings, so she basically avoided this kind of pain. However, the other elders were not as convenient as her. If they wanted to resist the cold, they had to burn their origin power. Therefore, on the surface it looked like they were just resting here, but in reality, the strength in their bodies was rapidly being consumed every minute and every second. This time they looked at Chu Liyue with even more complicated expressions. They originally thought that she was a burden, but who would have thought that in the end, they would be the ones dragging her down? Sensing the gazes of the elders, Chu Liyue turned around to take a look. Seeing their ears and cheeks that were red from the cold, her heart skipped a beat. If it weren't for the fact that she was worried about exposing Dumpling's identity, she would have really wanted to help. On the other side, Elder Huafeng was still standing on the spot as if he had entered a meditative state, staring intently at the Xian formation in front of him. Light flowed and undercurrents surged. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1333. 2 hours passed in a hurry. There was still no movement from Elder Huafeng's side, other than his tightly knitted brows and the growing worry in his eyes. It was impossible for a great Shen King master to crack a Xian formation left behind by a great master. Now he could only hope that he could find the flaws in this Xian formation as much as possible. This way, if they worked together and used it as a breakthrough, there might be a chance of success. Although the other elders were anxious, they did not dare to rush him and could only wait silently. Chu Liyue looked at it for a long time, but she still could not remember it. In addition, it was easy to feel dizzy after staring at it for a long time, so she simply changed to look at it. This Xian formation was very big and the patterns on it were extremely complicated. She randomly chose a place and stared at it for a while. When she felt uncomfortable, she continued to look at it elsewhere. The other elders did not pay much attention to this matter. They had long known that Chu Liyue was talented in Xian masters, so they treated it as her trying to learn and did not take it to heart. As Chu Liyue looked at it, she subconsciously copied it in her mind. However, because the level of this Xian formation was too high, she had never succeeded. No matter how clearly she saw it with her eyes, what appeared in her mind was always a blurry mess. She had already expected this, so she did not give up and only watched slowly. Another 2 hours passed. The elders couldn't sit still any longer. The situation on Elder Bo Yan's side was very unclear, and they were trapped here. They did not know when they would be able to leave. Even if they left, they did not know where to find the others in the academy. At this point, even a fool could guess that something must have happened to them. However, there was still no progress on Elder Huafeng's side. Chu Liyue's surprised voice suddenly came from the side. The elders turned their heads and saw that she was staring at the Xian formation with a strange expression. Chu Yu, what's wrong? An elder asked. Chu Liyue came back to her senses and smiled at the elders. Nothing, I just feel that this Xian formation is very profound. The work of a great master is naturally extraordinary. The elders did not doubt her and shook their heads helplessly. I wonder who is targeting us like this. In the entire Divine Ruins world, it wasn't that there weren't any first-rate families or sects with great grandmasters, but it was obvious that they couldn't confirm the other party's identity with just a profound formation. What's more, some sects and clans would deliberately hide experts of this level, which made it even harder to guess. Chu Liyue retracted his gaze and exhaled without batting an eyelid. Looking at the profound formation in front of him, his eyes still carried a bit of shock that had not faded away. Because just now she suddenly remembered where this sense of familiarity came from. The two profound formations that Dugu Mobao had left behind to test her were shockingly similar to the one in front of her right now. This feeling was hard to describe, and people who weren't mystic cultivators wouldn't be able to sense it. The reason for that was because this sort of similarity was truly too minute. Basically, it was all small details. Even she only realized it after staring at it for 4 hours. But isn't this too ridiculous? Judging from the power of this Xian formation's construction, it was definitely not Dugu Maobao's doing. However, the Xian formation was indeed similar to his. To say that this was just a coincidence, Chu Liyue didn't believe it herself. She stood rooted to the ground in a daze as many scenes appeared in her mind, including Dugu Mobao forcefully trapping her in Juheng Mountain before she left. At that time she felt that it was a little strange. Now that she saw this inexplicably similar profound formation, she was even more certain of her guess. Dugu Mobao deliberately didn't want her to come to the northern part of the Great Desolate Land. However, she was still confused as to who had created this Xian formation. Chu Liyue pondered for a moment and decided to suppress this question first. She could ask Dugu Mobao directly when she met him in the future. But now, it was more important to leave this place directly. Thinking of this, Chu Liyue turned to look at Elder Huafeng. He still maintained the same posture as he stared at the profound formation in front of him with a frown. Obviously, he hadn't found a solution yet. Elder Huafeng. Chu Liyue suddenly spoke. Elder Huafeng turned around when he heard the voice. There was still a hint of confusion in his eyes. Chu Yu? What's wrong? The other elders also looked over with strange expressions on their faces. Chu Liyue pursed her lips and said, "This student suddenly remembered that I seem to have seen a similar profound formation before." His casual words caused everyone's expression to change in an instant. Really? Elder Huafeng quickly walked over. Where did you see it? Who was the one who did it? Chu Liyue hurriedly said, I saw it by chance in a cave. It was engraved on the stone wall. As for who left it behind, I don't know. Moreover, the level of that profound formation was much lower than this one. A trace of disappointment flashed across Elder Huafeng's face. He originally thought that he could break through from Chu Yu, but who knew that it was all for naught? Then he suddenly thought of something. Then do you still remember what that profound formation looks like? Chu Liyue nodded. Think so. Draw it for me to see. As Elder Huafeng spoke, he hurriedly made way for Chu Liyue. It didn't matter even if it was a slightly lower level profound formation. As long as it was really similar, he might be able to start with that first and then solve this one. Chu Liyue pressed her lips against each other and glanced at him uneasily. A long time has passed and this student didn't look at it carefully at that time. There might be some mistakes in the middle. It's fine, you don't have to worry about this. Just draw it first. Elder Huafeng comforted her. Right now he could only try his best to save a dead horse. As long as there was a little hope, he had to give it a try. Only then did Chu Liyue let out a sigh of relief. Then this student will begin. After saying that, she held her breath and raised her arm gently. Her fair fingers waved gently in the air. A stream of light quietly flew out and then scattered into several rays that intertwined with each other. Elder Huafeng sighed in his heart. This Chuyu was indeed extremely talented in the field of Xian masters. Although his movements weren't smooth enough, it was already very outstanding. If he could take him in as a disciple and train him well, he would probably be able to crush many students in the Xian master class. Even compared to Lin Qifei, who had recently risen to fame, he might not be inferior. Chu Liuyue's Xian formation construction speed was very slow. From time to time she would have to stop and think. Moreover, there were many gaps in the Xian formation and some lines were complicated and intertwined together. In short, it seemed that she really wasn't familiar with this Xian formation. After a long time, Chu Liyue finally completed this Xian formation. She looked at Elder Huafeng nervously. Elder, it's roughly like this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1334. The Xian formation that Chu Liyue drew was the first Xian formation that Du Gumabao tested her. At that time she was still a level 9 Xian master. He left behind this Xian formation that clearly didn't match her level and left. Fortunately, this Xian formation wasn't particularly difficult. Especially compared to the one that he locked her up in Ninehing Mountain, it was simply a piece of cake. According to Chu Liuyue's current true strength, she could naturally draw a complete outline of it. But after thinking about it carefully, she still didn't do so. As a result, the current tattered profound formation could not be considered as one that she had successfully cast, but rather one that she had drawn. This way it wouldn't arouse the suspicions of the elders. In the end, it didn't arouse any suspicions, but the elders looked at Chu Liyue with disdain. Chu, this is the Xian formation you made? The corner of an elder's eyes twitched. Chu Liyue explained embarrassedly, because that Xian formation is too complicated with this student's current strength, I am still unable to completely cast it, so I can only barely draw it. In addition, I don't remember it very clearly, so it became like this. It's fine, let me take a look. Elder Huafeng didn't care and stared at the Xian formation carefully. The general outline of this Xian formation is indeed somewhat similar. Although it was a little forced, Elder Huafeng was a great Xian king teacher after all. He had seen countless Xian formations and his sensitivity towards such things was only higher than Chu Liyue. Therefore, after looking at it for a while, he gave an affirmative answer. I'll take a look and see if I can find a way. Perhaps some ideas can be shared. Hearing his words, the other elders also became spirited. Elder Huafeng stared at it for a long time. Of course, this couldn't be considered a complete Xian formation, but fortunately the general structure was clear. Moreover, it was obvious that some small details were indeed extremely similar to the Xian formation that trapped them here. It was probably because Chuyu really couldn't remember it clearly, so some of the lines were rather chaotic. Chuyu, the lines in this place are all entangled together. What's going on? Elder Huafeng pointed at one of them and asked. Oh. Chu Liyue looked in the direction of his hand and smiled embarrassedly. Oh, you mean this? I really can't remember this part, so I just casually scratched it a few times. I don't know how it ended up like this. It's just a small piece, so it shouldn't have any effect, right? How can it not be affected? This was a Xian formation. Elder Huafeng shook his head in disapproval. The higher the grade of the Xian formation, the more intricate it is. Even the slightest mistake can cause the entire Xian formation to collapse, let alone this kind of random action. This child's attitude in this aspect really needed to be corrected. Thank you for your guidance, Elder. The student will remember it. Chu Liyue lowered his head slightly, seemingly a little guilty. His expression was sincere. Elder Huafeng didn't really want to blame her, so he waved his hand. It's fine. Remember this time, don't do it again in the future. Suddenly, Elder Huafeng's eyes lit up as he stared at the profound formation with a faint flame of excitement. Elder, what's wrong with you? Chu Liyue asked curiously. That's it. Elder Huafeng laughed happily. That's it. Chu Liyue looked at the Xian formation with a blank expression, as if she didn't understand what he meant. However, Elder Huafeng had already turned around and looked at the dark blue barrier again. All of you step back. Let me try and see if I can open this barrier. Elder Huafeng's words shocked everyone present, and then they immediately retreated in unison. Elder Huafeng raised his hand, and a brilliant stream of light appeared in his palm. He waved his hands faster and faster. Countless streams of light intertwined in front of him and quickly gathered into a small Xian formation. If one looked carefully, they would realize that the Xian formation in front of him was very similar to the one that Chu Liwei had just drawn. In particular, there were several places that were comparable to the messy patterns on her Xian formation. Then Elder Huafeng slowly pushed the Xian formation forward with a solemn expression. Buzz. The small Xian formation quietly stuck to the huge blue Xian formation. As soon as it touched, it let out a buzzing sound. Because of his nervousness, Elder Huafeng's back was already drenched in sweat. Seeing this reaction, he was delighted. His intuition told him that there was hope. However, he still didn't dare to relax in the slightest. He stretched out his hands and turned them slightly. The lines on the small Xian formation gradually changed. As if affected by this power, the blue Xian formation that was tightly attached to it also began to rotate. With it as the center, the blue flowing light around it gradually began to disperse into the surroundings. Seeing this shocking change, everyone present held their breaths. The surroundings were so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Elder Huafeng's strength was quickly consumed, and his face quickly turned pale. With his current strength, it was obviously still somewhat difficult for him to open this Xian formation. "Help me!" he suddenly shouted in a low voice. The elders behind him immediately understood and channeled their origin power into his body. With his strength replenished, Elder Huafeng finally caught his breath. He took a deep breath, gathered the energy in his body, and poured it all into the Xian formation in front of him. Crack! A crisp cracking sound could be heard. A crack appeared on the dark blue Xian formation. "Let's go." With Elder Huafeng's order, the elders behind him immediately rushed out. "Chuyu, quick!" He could only barely open this crack for a short period of time, so he had to do it as soon as possible. Chu Liwei didn't say anything and quickly followed. The last one to come out was Elder Huafeng. Bang! The Xian formation closed again. Elder Huafeng was sent flying by the impact. The few of them hurriedly rushed over. "Huafeng, are you all right?" Elder Huafeng struggled to stand up and shook his head. "Don't worry, I'm fine." As he spoke, he looked at Chu Liwei and couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Good boy. You've done a great service today. If it weren't for you accidentally opening this Xian formation, we might not have been able to open it today." Digression. Updated at about 12 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1335. Chu Liwei blinked his eyes and there seemed to be a smile in his dark jade-like eyes. "It's all thanks to you that we were able to come out." Elder Huafeng patted the snow off his body and looked at the dark blue Xian formation that had been closed again. He still felt shocked. He sighed. "If you hadn't remembered that Xian formation, I'm afraid that I wouldn't have been able to solve this level even if I had another month. Although your Xian formation is broken, it's still very useful. Especially the few places where you made mistakes." It was the seemingly messy pattern that woke him up. He followed that train of thought and tried to solve the Xian formation, and he succeeded. "Kid, you are really our lucky star." Elder Huafeng was really convinced. Not only was this kid lucky, but the people who were with him always seemed to be lucky as well. This was probably the physique of a born lucky star. Originally he was about to give up, but who would have thought that there would be a sudden turn of events? Chu Liwei pursed his lips and smiled. "Elder, you flatter me. No matter what, it would be best if I could help you." The other elders also heaved a sigh of relief at this moment, and the way they looked at Chu Liwei became unprecedentedly kind. "Haha, I didn't expect that the Xian formation that Chuyu barely drew would actually be so useful. Chuyu, you have contributed greatly this time." "That's right. Why don't you follow Elder Huafeng to cultivate Xian formations in the future? Otherwise, you won't be able to display such a Xian formation every time." "Think so. Anyway, you have talent, so don't waste it." After experiencing this incident, the elders had completely changed their view of Chu Liwei. They could now see that not only did this child not cause trouble, he was also able to help at critical moments. At the very least, they owed Chuyu half a favor this time. These words made Elder Huafeng burst with joy. He thought to himself that after the matter in the northern region of the Great Desolate Land was over, He would definitely make this kid acknowledge him as his master. He really couldn't miss such a disciple with such potential. He had to take him away. Looking at Elder Huafeng's enthusiastic gaze, the corner of Chu Liyue's eyes twitched, and he calmly changed the topic. Elder, since we're out, should we go look for Elder Bo Yen and the others? As soon as he said this, he immediately reminded them. You're right. It's not good to stay here for long, let's leave as soon as possible. As Elder Huafeng spoke, he glanced at the Xian formation again. I just don't know who exactly left behind this Xian formation. At this moment the Xian formation split it to the point twos. And quickly it twos to Sun. Elder Huafeng's eyes turned cold and he quickly took a few steps forward. But there was no trace left on the snow. Elder Huafeng reprimanded. But from this, it could be seen how shrewd the person who had prepared this move was. To be too. Behind him, an elder said with a frown. This was actually what they had been worried about. Elder Huafeng raised his eyes and looked forward. How was he going to find them in the vast snowfield? At the same time, somewhere in the northern part of the great desolate land, a figure quickly flashed across the snow. Unlike the others, he was walking half an inch above the surface of the snow. As a result, wherever he passed, the surface of the snow was as smooth as before, not leaving a single trace behind. Then he stood still somewhere and slapped the ground with his palm. Snowflakes flew everywhere. The frozen and dark ground was revealed. He took out something and knocked it on the ground 3 times. Dong dong dong. After 3 muffled sounds, an entrance to the underground suddenly appeared. Without hesitation, he leaped up and instantly vanished from the ground. Not long after, a cold wind blew and snowflakes fell, silently burying the place. After walking underground, there was a long flight of stairs. On the walls on both sides of the stairs there were candles. The pale flames made the long and narrow tunnel seem even darker and more cramped, making it hard to breathe. However, the man seemed to be used to it. His footsteps did not stop as he continued to walk down. About a quarter of an hour later, he finally arrived at a hall below. There was no one in the hall, but in the 4 corners of the hall, there was a lantern placed there. The light shone through, illuminating the mysterious reliefs on the walls and ceiling. In the middle was a huge bronze mirror. At the edge of the bronze mirror, there was a layer of blood, making it look exceptionally terrifying. This scene caused the atmosphere in the hall to become extremely heavy and oppressive. The man quickly walked to the bronze mirror and knelt down on one knee. Master, someone has broken the netherworld formation. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood at the edge of the bronze mirror suddenly flowed slowly towards the middle. Soon the mirror was completely covered by this blood color. At a glance, it looked like a surging sea of blood. A low and hoarse voice came out from it. He's here? Master, it doesn't seem to be that person. The man kneeling on the ground lowered his head even more. It's an elder of Lingxiao College. If I'm not wrong, his strength should be at the level of a great mystic emperor teacher. A great mystic emperor teacher? How long did he use? This 4 hours. As soon as the man finished speaking, the sea of blood in the bronze mirror seemed to surge. A moment later, a laugh came out. When did a great mystic emperor teacher break the netherworld formation so quickly? Everything this subordinate said is true. Cold sweat appeared on the forehead of the man on the ground. Keep an eye on him first and see what other abilities he has. Also, what about the others? Master, other than a dozen people who escaped, the rest of Lingxiao College have already been controlled. The man in the bronze mirror paused for a moment, his tone becoming especially dangerous. Escaped? A dozen? Bang. The man kneeling on the ground immediately kowtowed fiercely in fear and trepidation. Master Bo Yen and the rest are really cunning. This subordinate was careless and this subordinate. It's all this subordinate's fault. Please punish me, Master. Go and investigate. None of these people from Lingxiao College can be let off. Yes. The man kowtowed a few more times in panic before getting up and leaving in fear and trepidation. However, just as he took a few steps, another voice came from behind him. Where's Mu Qinghe? The man stopped in his tracks and turned around hesitantly with a conflicted expression. Master, previously he didn't listen to your orders and insisted on staying in Tianling. Isn't he already an abandoned pawn? An abandoned pawn has its uses. Since he's unwilling to come back, then invite him back. Yes. After his figure disappeared, the blood on the bronze mirror slowly receded. In just a short while it returned to its original appearance. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.